Chapter 727. Elite Sector. Didn't the Academy just accept a new batch of freshmen recently? Why don't you allow her to conduct a public lecture and take in any students who are willing to acknowledge her as their teacher? Musha proposed. This. School head Lu hesitated for a moment before eventually nodding. All right then. Going by conventions, new teachers weren't qualified to conduct public lectures, but since it was a request from Musha, they were willing to bend the rules. Besides, Musha's attitude also seemed to verify the guesses in everyone's heart. If Luo Ruoxin wasn't a descendant of a sage clan, why would Musha make such a request on her behalf? If she was just an ordinary junior, he could have just left her to fend for herself in the academy. There was no need for him to go through so much trouble. More importantly, Luo Ruoxin had a nonchalant expression on her face, as if it was only right for such a thing to happen. Only the descendant of a powerful clan would dare to put on such an attitude. Musha. After making arrangements for Luo Ruoxin, the elders gathered around Musha and told him about the issue regarding the otherworldly demons. I was still troubled as to who I should nominate as the new principal. After all, regardless of whom I choose, there will bound to be disagreements, and this could pose significant inefficiencies in the management of the academy. But since such a matter happened, Musha hesitated for a moment before continuing. How about this? Of the 10 of you, whoever who finds Byzantium Aelio's beast, saves him, and wins his acknowledgement shall be the next principal. You all should have no objections with this, right? While the 10 great elders managed separate schools each, it was inevitable that there would be some degree of rivalry among them. Otherwise, the principal's seat wouldn't have remained empty despite it being years since the disappearance of the old principal. Musha had been troubled over this issue when he was dispatched to Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy to nominate the next principal, but this incident came at a timely moment. Through making this the selection criterion, everyone would stand an equal chance at becoming the next principal. Furthermore, through saving the old principal's tamed beast, the new principal would be able to build up his fame and authority, making it hard for anyone to undermine him. This. All right. The elders glanced at one another, and after a moment of hesitation, they eventually nodded in agreement. While this matter would be extremely tricky to deal with, it could also be viewed as an opportunity to display their capability. If they were able to do what others weren't able to, that could in a way show that they had the qualification to head the Master Teacher Academy. Otherwise, should the current situation where no one was content with allowing another head them, the Master Teacher Academy would continue to remain divided. While the elders were welcoming Musha, Zhongxian had finally reached the very center of the elite sector. Due to Elder Mo's anxiety to meet the other elders to discuss the issue regarding the otherworldly demons, he could only figure out the way himself. If I'm not mistaken, there must be a massive spirit vein beneath the ground. The deeper I head in, the closer I reach the center of the spirit vein, the richer the spiritual energy in the surroundings is, Zhongxian muttered as he felt the changes in the spiritual energy concentration around him. Most likely, a senior of the academy had set up a massive spirit gathering formation in the area, and over the years, it had grown to become an immense spirit vein. Even though the residences were built side by side, there was a significant difference between among them. The further in the residences were, the closer they were to the core of the spirit vein. If one could get a lodging at the core of the spirit vein, their cultivation would surely soar swiftly. But regardless of how concentrated the spiritual energy in the region was, it didn't have much significance to Zhongxian. After all, he cultivated mainly through absorbing spirit stones. No matter how concentrated the spiritual energy in the surroundings was, could it possibly possess spiritual energy more concentrated than within a spirit stone? After looting Yu Cheng and Senior Feng's storage rings, he wasn't lacking any spirit stones at the moment. However, as he had yet to compile the Heaven's Path Divine Art for the next tier, he could only put aside his cultivation for the moment. In any case, the positioning of his residence didn't matter to him. All he needed now was a quiet residence where he could cultivate. After walking for a moment longer, a massive building came into sight. This was where Elder Mo had told him to report to in order to claim a residence in the elite sector. Zhongxian slowly walked up the stone stairs and entered the building. There was only a handful of senior students seated on the chairs in the lounge, and they seemed to be discussing the difficulties they had met in their cultivation. For the Northern Harmony palm, the zhenqi should start flowing from the left and terminate at the right. Through this way, the zhenqi could make a full circulation around one's body, thus maximizing the might of the technique. I don't think that it's as simple as you have said. If that's all to the technique, we would have long mastered it. There must be a problem somewhere with our understanding. I recall my teacher once telling me that this palm technique should rise from the south and end in the north. I think that the direction is significant in this technique as well. The group discussed with a deep frown on their foreheads. To qualify for the Master Teacher Academy, one had to be a 4-star pinnacle master teacher at the minimum. Even though it was hard to determine what grade the seniors before him were in, they carried a relatively powerful aura. As the other party hadn't driven their zhenqi, it was impossible for Zhongxian to gauge their strength without using the eye of insight. Nevertheless, their cultivation was unlikely to be beyond Cosmos Bridge realm. Seniors. Seeing that the group were engrossed in their chat, Zhongxian clasped his fist and greeted them with a smile. You are. Hearing those words, the group immediately turned their gazes over. However, upon realizing that it was an unfamiliar face, they frowned. They were the few worst-scoring students in the academy this year, so the academy had punished them by assigning them to various places to do menial labor. The place they were currently in was the elite sector, and students who were qualified to stay here were the top geniuses of their grade. As the academy wanted them to focus their attention on furthering their cultivation, their daily chores ended up falling in their hands. Waiting upon those geniuses would temper their mental fortitude, and at the same time, it provides a platform for them to build connections with those geniuses. These connections may prove to be useful to their future. As such, the group here was familiar with everyone in the elite sector, and the young man before them was clearly a foreign face. I am a freshman of the academy. Elder Mo directed me to you for a residence in this sector, so I'll be troubling you for that. With a light chuckle, Wang Chong whipped out the token Elder Mo had passed to him. Elder Mo? Taken aback, the group hurriedly got to their feet. Elder Mo was the head of the Beast School, as well as one of the 10 great master teachers. Even as seniors, they dared not to disrespect a student whom Elder Mo had directed here. After checking his token and verifying it to be the real thing, one of the older students clasped his fist and said, "Give us a moment, Junior. We'll bring you to your residence right after some discussion." With those words, he gathered the group to a side of the room. Due to the spiritual energy concentration gradient down the spirit vein, there was a significant difference between each residence. If they were to settle him into the wrong room, they might bring trouble upon themselves. As such, it was imperative that they discussed this matter thoroughly. Since Elder Mo directed him here personally, that junior probably possesses incredible talent. It just happens that the junior living in the first residence in the D sector has just moved away after being promoted to grade 2, so we could settle him there. The first residence in the D sector? That sounds like a good plan. Another senior nodded in agreement. The elite sector could be divided into the A sector, B sector, C sector, and D sector, corresponding to grade 4, grade 3, grade 2, and grade 1 respectively. Naturally, those in the higher grade would be prioritized in terms of proximity to the core of the spirit vein. Even though the junior before them was only a freshman, just the fact that he was directed here by Elder Mo hinted at his capability, making him qualified to stay in the first residence. But is it really good to assign a freshman the first residence? While there were some who agreed with that course of action, some voiced their objections as well. She's right. The other students have been eyeing the first residence ever since news broke that Cheng Yu would be promoted to grade 2. Those fellows would surely be outraged if they were to hear that a freshman had taken their place. Another senior added. The grades in the Master Teacher Academy were determined by one's ranking as a master teacher, not how many years one had been in the academy. One would enroll into the academy as a 4-star pinnacle master teacher, and the requirement to be promoted to grade 2 was to become a 5-star master teacher. In order to advance to 5-star, not only must one's cultivation reach transcendent mortal 6-dan cosmos bridge realm, one's soul depth and knowledge must also reach a certain mark. On top of that, one must have 5 5-star supporting occupations. As such, It would take around a decade for an average master teacher to advance a grade. It was in view of this that the Master Teacher Tournament was only held once every 10 years. Outside of it, the Master Teacher Academy would only accept a handful of students each year. On that note, that was how Huanyu Empire's Yi Qian joined the academy. But getting back to the matter at hand, as long as one hadn't made the breakthrough to 5-star yet, one would be ineligible to be promoted to Grade 2. The first residence in the D sector had always been occupied by a Grade 1 student known as Cheng Yu, and he had just successfully passed his 5-star Master Teacher examination this year. As such, he had left his previous residence for one in the C sector. However, there were many other Grade 1 Master Teachers who were eyeing the same residence as well. If they were to assign it to a freshman, they might turn hostile against that freshman. But what can we do about it? It was Elder Mo who pointed him here. They will have to accept it somehow. In any case, we aren't the ones who should be troubled by this matter. This will be an opportunity for us to see how capable the freshman is for Elder Mo to give him his token, one of the seniors said with a chuckle. That's true. The others nodded in agreement as well. After discussing the matter, they walked up to Zhongxian and said, "We have found a residence for you. This way, please." With those words, the group began walking to the D sector, and Zhongxian followed closely behind them. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of a residence. After taking a quick glance of it, Zhongxian nodded in satisfaction. This residence was located very close to the core of the spirit vein, so it was rich in spiritual energy. On top of that, its surroundings were very quiet. In other words, as long as he were to set up a formation around the residence, no one would be aware of it even if he were to pummel the Byzantium Alios beast in it. "Zhongshu, this will be your residence. Here is the key." The senior opened the door before passing it over to him. They had learned of the young man's name on the way here, so they changed their method of address from junior to Zhongshu. "Thank you." Zhongxian nodded. But just as he was about to step into the residence, a young man suddenly appeared with an awful complexion on his face and said, "Huang Xing and Ju Tong, what do you mean by this? I've told you many times to hand the key over to me, but you rejected my request again and again. Who is this fellow? Why are you giving the key to him instead? Are you in Grade 1? Why haven't I seen you around before? To attempt to move into the residence right after enrolling in the academy, do you think that you are Cheng Yu?" A man and a lady dressed in the master teacher robe with 4 stars pinned on their chest entered right after the young man. Upon seeing the key in Zhongxian's hands, they glared at him in displeasure. They were the occupants of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th residence in the D sector, and they had been eyeing this residence for a very long time. If they could take down the first residence, not only would they get to enjoy the concentrated spiritual energy there, it would also signify that they were the top of the Grade 1 students, a position of immense prestige. The trio had thought that with Cheng Yu's departure, the residence would be passed down to one of them. Who knew that Huang Xing and the others would bring a complete stranger in? Who the hell was this? Even if they had offered the residence to you, to move in without any hesitation. Do you even know what this signifies? Chapter 728, 3 Great Geniuses Looking for Trouble. Please calm down. It was not me but Elder Mo who decided Zhongshu's lodging. The student known as Huang Xing hurriedly explained the situation. Elder Mo? The trio was taken aback by the revelation. Why would the esteemed Elder Mo, one of the 10 great master teachers, direct a mere Grade 1 student here? They glanced at one another hesitantly for a moment before a gleam of determination flashed across the eyes of the first young man, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Regardless of whether it's an instruction from Elder Mo or not, to stay in the first residence, you must first possess strength surpassing us. This is a rule established by the Master Teacher Academy. Flout it, and it won't be just us but the entire Grade 1 cohort who will object to this. This young man over here, do you dare to compete with me?" In order to further motivate the students, the residence placings in the elite sector were determined by one's strength and capability. This was a long-established tradition of the Master Teacher Academy, so even an esteemed elder like Elder Mo would have to think twice before flouting it. "Zhongshu, this young man here is Wu Chan. He possesses a cultivation of Cosmos Bridge Realm Pinnacle, and with his superior strength, he managed to clinch the 2nd place in the annual tournament among the Grade 1 students. It is only due to his lacking soul depth that he hasn't been promoted to a 5-star master teacher yet. One of the seniors who had led Zhongxian here sent him a telepathic message discreetly, explaining the background of the 3 students before him. Annual tournament? Zhongxian asked curiously. Back when he was still in Tianxian Kingdom as a teacher, there was something of this sort in Hongtian Academy as well. To this date, he could still recall how much trouble he had gone through for his students for it. Was he going to have to undergo it as a student now that he was in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy? Furthermore, this annual tournament was likely going to be very different from the one he had in Hongtian Academy. After all, Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy was built not for cultivators but master teachers. Yes. Every year, there would be an intergrade tournament where students would clash with one another with their capabilities as master teachers. Only the one who emerges as the champion of the tournament is qualified to stay in this residence. Seeing the confusion on Zhongxian's face, the senior explained. According to the other party's words, it seemed like the annual tournament should be somewhat alike to the master teacher tournament. Every year, the students would be put against one another, and they would be ranked according to how they perform. Rewards would be offered to those who had performed spectacularly to further motivate the students to work harder. Judging from the attitude of these 3 students before him, it seemed like they had qualms regarding him taking the first residence. However, that was to be expected. How embarrassing it would be if it were to be made known that the first residence which they had fought over for so long had been taken by a freshman. They wouldn't be able to face other students in the academy. Realizing this fact, Zhongxian turned to Wu Chan and smiled. Sure. What do you want to compete with me on? As much as Zhongxian wanted to keep a low profile, that didn't mean that he was afraid of trouble. If he couldn't establish a clear dominance over the other students, he would soon find a steady stream of challengers queuing up before his residence, wanting to defeat him and claim the residence for themselves. If that was going to be the case, he would rather settle it once and for all. By right, as students of the Master Teacher Academy, we should be competing on our capabilities as master teachers. However, that will be both lengthy and troublesome. Thus, I propose that we settle it through a physical duel, Wu Chan said with a confident smile. There were simply too many aspects of a master teacher that one could be evaluated on, so competing on them one by one would be inconvenient and time-consuming. As such, settling it with their fists was a more viable option in this case. A physical duel? That's right. We might be master teachers, but there should be little doubt that our cultivation forms the very foundation of our capabilities. As long as you are able to defeat me in a physical duel, I won't utter a word of complaint regarding your stay here. Wu Chan replied. I see. Zhongxian nodded. After which, he turned to the other 2 and asked, what about you 2? What do you want to compete on? Me. I want to compete with you on the execution of impartation of heaven's will, the female student replied. Perhaps the female student had tailored her master teacher robe, but it was extremely fitting on her. It shaped out her slim and elegant figure beautifully. Even though her charm could hardly match up to Luo Chich's and Yu Feiya, those 2 were existences who were touched by the goddess of beauty after all, she still commanded an elegance that would easily put her in the center of gazes. She's the second runner-up of the annual tournament, Ran Xiaoxiao, the senior informed Zhongxian telepathically. As for the last guy, he's the third runner-up, Xiao Nan. Noting down what the senior said, Zhongxian turned to Xiao Nan and asked, what about you? I'll compete with you in a physical duel as well. Xiao Nan replied. All right. Seeing that the 2 men wanted a physical duel while the lady wanted to compete of impartation of heaven's will, Zhongxian rubbed his glabella. Turning to the female master teacher, Ran Xiaoxiao, he said, I won't take advantage of you. You're Ran Xiaoxiao, right? You shall fight in my stead and teach the both of them a lesson. Ah! I shall fight in your stead. Ran Xiaoxiao froze upon hearing Zhongxian's words. Is this fellow a lunatic? The 3 of them had come here to teach him a lesson, and yet he wanted her to fight the others on his behalf. Isn't it a little too early to be dreaming? Wu Chan and Xiao Nan were startled by Zhongxian's words, and they turned to look at him as if he was a fool. They thought a man who was directed here by Elder Mo would possess some kind of extraordinary talents, but to think that that talent would be boasting. Ran Xiaoxiao had come together with them to challenge him, so how could she possibly make a move against them? That's right. If I'm not mistaken, it seems like it has been 3 months since your Ziwei and Yingtai acupoints are sealed, causing the zhenqi in your body started flowing in the opposite direction. Do you feel an intense itch across your entire body? Zhong Xian asked with a light chuckle. Even though Ran Xiaoxiao hadn't executed any battle technique, her current cultivation realm was only at Cosmos Bridge realm, so the Eye of Insight was effective against her. Why you? Ran Xiaoxiao's eyes widened in astonishment. It was true that it had been 3 months since her Ziwei and Yingtai acupoints had been sealed, resulting in a stalemate in her cultivation. As zhenqi began to accumulate, an intense itch gradually consumed her, leaving her in great agony. If you were to do as I say, you will be able to resolve that issue easily. Ignoring her astonishment, Zhong Xian spoke nonchalantly. The reason why your 2 acupoints were sealed is due to your incorrect zhenqi circulation technique. Direct your zhenqi to your Huihai acupoint and, just like this, Zhong Xian swiftly listed a dozen more acupoints. Ran Xiaoxiao was still hesitant whether she should give it a try after hearing those acupoints when she suddenly felt her zhenqi surging uncontrollably through her body. This is impartation of heaven's will? Crap. Upon realizing what was going on, Ran Xiaoxiao's face paled, and she nearly burst into tears. She had just said that she would compete with the other party on impartation of heaven's will when the other party started even before she was ready. Wasn't this cheating? She immediately tried to forcefully terminate her zhenqi's circulation so as to dispel the effects of the impartation of heaven's will when she suddenly felt the seal on her Ziwei and Yingtai acupoints loosening. It seemed as if they would open up at any moment now. This. Ran Xiaoxiao blinked her eyes blankly, dumbstruck. Could it be that the other party's method was right? Circulating her zhenqi in such a pathway would resolve the bottleneck which had trapped her for 3 months. With such thoughts in mind, she abandoned the notion of terminating her zhenqi's circulation, allowing her zhenqi to flow freely under the effects of the impartation of heaven's will. Hong Long. In just a short instant, she felt her bottleneck dissipating under the flow of zhenqi, and a feeling of lightness abruptly embraced her body. Her aura also became much more refined and sharper. All right, you should go and duel with them now. Zhong Xian waved his hands. Yes. Under the effects of the impartation of heaven's will, Zhong Xian's words were absolute, leaving her no room for objections. With a faint smile, she turned around and charged at Wu Chan and Xiao Nan. What the freaking hell? Screw this bullshit. Seeing Ran Xiaoxiao charging at them with furious momentum, how could the duo remain oblivious to what was going on? They had been waiting for Zhong Shi to duel with them, but the comrade whom they marched here with ended up turning against them instead. The abrupt twist in the situation left them feeling lightheaded, and curses spilled out of their mouths. In a normal duel between master teachers, one would typically test the capability of one's opponent before making any move. Yet, the first thing the fellow did was to beguile one of their own to side with him. Nevertheless, one thing was for sure. Given that Ran Xiaoxiao had chosen to challenge him to an impartation of heaven's will duel, it could only mean that she had reached incredible heights in her soul depth. But even so, she ended up falling prey to the other party's words. This goes to say that he did possess exceptional means despite being a freshman. It would be unwise to underestimate the young man before them. If you think that you can win against us just by beguiling Ran Xiaoxiao, you are being way too naive. As rivals, we have clashed dozens of times over the years. We are well aware of her cultivation techniques, battle techniques, and the maneuvers she usually utilizes in battle. Wu Chan harumphed coldly as he easily dodged Ran Xiaoxiao's consecutive punches with movements as swift as lightning. As the second, third, and fourth rankers in the annual tournament, it was inevitable that they would view one another as rivals. They had clashed with one another frequently, granting them a thorough understanding of each other's moves. If that fellow thought that he could defeat the both of them through beguiling one of them through impartation of heaven's will, he was dreaming. Wu Chan, I'll deal with Ran Xiaoxiao. You should go and teach that fellow a lesson. Xiao Nan harumphed. All right. Wu Chan nodded. However, just as he was about to advance for the young man, the latter's nonchalant voice suddenly sounded in the air, coalescence of the night rain, drifting snow of the glacier mountain, frosted leaves, crimson blossoms. The words were neither fast nor slow, paced pleasantly to the ear. Those phrases were the maneuvers of the battle techniques they specialized in. However, under normal circumstances, these maneuvers couldn't be executed back-to-back with one another. However, for some reason, he suddenly felt a nearly uncontrollable urge to execute them. No. I mustn't fall for his tricks. Knowing that if he were to really do so, he would fall under the other party's control like Ran Xiaoxiao, becoming a tool under his impartation of heaven's will, Wu Chan bit his tongue in determination. Under the excruciating pain, he felt his head clearing up. Following which, he heard a series of pa 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 pa, and by the time he turned his head, Xiao Nan's face was already swollen as if a pig's head. This. Astonished by the sight before him, Wu Chan's eyeballs nearly popped from their sockets. Even if Xiao Nan possessed strength beneath Ran Xiaoxiao, it should be impossible for him to be defeated in just a few moves. For this to happen, Wu Chan could only think of one possibility, that was if those maneuvers the other party were put together, not only was it possible to execute it, it would even display an astounding prowess. Otherwise, considering how Ran Xiaoxiao and Xiao Nan were nearly equally matched, it didn't make sense how the latter could be bashed so badly in just a few breaths. I don't believe it. The more he thought about it, the more Wu Chan felt doubtful and apprehensive about the matter. Gritting his teeth, he charged right at Ran Xiaoxiao. As a practitioner of the same battle technique, he was very familiar with these maneuvers as well. Upon seeing the other party execute them, he immediately knew how he should move to evade those attacks. But for some reason, the other party's moves seemed to be much more difficult to deal with than usual. After barely avoiding a few blows by a hair's breadth, he was already sweating profusely. Clearly, Ran Xiaoxiao's cultivation had advanced significantly under that fellow's guidance, to the point where even he could hardly match up to her. Could an impartation of heaven's will advance Ran Xiaoxiao's cultivation by so much? Or was the combination of those few maneuvers that powerful? Screw it. I should just give it a try myself. Wu Chan took a step back to leap out of the battle before executing the moves in the order which the young man had said earlier. Pooh. But by the time he reached the third blow, he suddenly felt his zhenqi running amok as it abruptly ran in the opposite direction. His face paled, and crimson blood spewed from his mouth. Pa pa pa. At the same moment, Ran Xiaoxiao had already rushed up to him and slammed him onto the ground with a slap. This. Zhong Xian scratched his head in bewilderment, uncomprehending of the situation before him. Ran Xiaoxiao has just opened her Ziwei and Yingtai acupoints, and she has the constitution of a female as well, so it's fine for her to use these moves in succession. But what is this fellow doing? Does he know that using moves so haphazardly can make his cultivation go berserk easily? Chapter 729, Blacksmith School. Every single battle technique has its own unique zhenqi circulation method and execution style, so it's important for a cultivator to pair them together wisely. Using an analogy, while it's possible for one to punch his left fist to the right while punching the right fist to the left, the clash in the momentum from both actions made in unison would potentially result in muscle tear and disturbances in one's zhenqi. This was the problem Wu Chan was suffering from at this instant. The maneuvers which Zhong Xian advised Ran Xiaoxiao on was in consideration of her unique circumstances, having just opened her Ziwei and Yingtai acupoint and her incredible physical flexibility as a woman. On the other hand, Wu Chan had yet to open those who acupoints, and his body was slightly more rigid as a male as well, making it highly dangerous for him to execute those moves in succession. I am guiding Ran Xiaoxiao, why in the world are you trying to learn it as well? Look at what this brings you. You ended up crippling yourself before you can achieve anything. With this incident, there was no way Wu Chan could be a match for Ran Xiaoxiao anymore. If Wu Chan were to know Zhong Xian's thoughts, he would surely burst into tears. Your impartation of heaven's will is so powerful, and my soul depth has been my main weakness all along. After seeing the massive improvement Ran Xiaoxiao has made under your guidance, how could I possibly hold myself back from giving it a try? In the end, of the three geniuses who came to challenge Zhongshe, two of them were lying on the ground, frothing at the lips, while the last one was completely obedient to him. Huang Xing and the others couldn't help but gape at that sight. This was way too exaggerated. The second, third and fourth rankers of the annual tournament had come to challenge him. Yet, with just a few words from their opponents, they ended up turning against one another, eventually landing them in utter defeat. They couldn't help but doubt the authenticity of the sight before them. Was this a show they had cooked up to toy with them, or were they just dreaming? It was fortunate that they hadn't offended Zhongshe earlier, otherwise, the ones who would be lying on the ground at this moment might be them. It was no wonder Bai Elder Mo would direct him to the elite sector personally. He did possess the talent worthy of that. At the same time, Ran Xiaoxiao was staring at the sight before her in a daze. It seemed as if she could hardly believe that the rivals whom she wasn't able to overcome in the past few years could be defeated so easily. All right, I'll be leaving the rest to you all then. With Zhong Xian's current Cosmos Bridge Realm pinnacle cultivation, it would be almost bullying if he were to make a move on these Grade 1 students. It would be damaging to his reputation if word were to spread out, so he had opted to have Ran Xiaoxiao fight in his place instead. With this, there should be no one else in the Grade 1 who would oppose his occupation of the first residence. With nothing else tying him here, he waved his hand casually and walked toward the residence. Pushing open the door to the residence, he immediately felt a surge of spiritual energy blew past him. The residence was extremely large. On top of the usual amenities, there was even a personal training ground in the courtyard and a sealed chamber for discussing important matters. Honestly speaking, it seemed more like a manor than a residence. It was no wonder the trio had wanted this residence. The privileges granted to the top of the grade was indeed incredible. After taking a casual look around the residence, Zhong Xian didn't dive straight into cultivating. Instead, he took a seat in one of the rooms to contemplate on his next course of action. There were a total of 10 schools representing an occupation each in this academy, and each of them had a humongous library containing a precious trove of knowledge. It wasn't easy for Zhong Xian to enroll into the academy, so he should make use of the opportunity to tour the academy and learn everything he could. By the time he was done, he should be ready to take on the 6-star Master Teacher examination. Only upon becoming a 6-star Master Teacher would one be considered to have taken one's first step into the world of the top experts in the Master Teacher continent. This was an essential step for Zhong Xian to gain the power to protect himself and those around him. But before then, I have to find higher-tier cultivation technique manuals first. Zhong Xian's Heaven's Path Divine Art was only up to Cosmos Bridge Realm at the moment. To advance to Perfect Harmonization Realm, he would have to gather even more cultivation technique manuals to compile a complete Heaven's Path Divine Art for that cultivation realm. The cultivation techniques are gathered in the cultivation hall. Zhong Xian recalled the words Luo Chichi had told him on the journey here. Gathered in the cultivation hall was the reflection and comprehension notes and cultivation technique manuals that countless geniuses had left behind over the years. As long as he could gain entry into the cultivation hall, he would surely be able to compile a complete Perfect Harmonization Realm Heaven's Path Divine Art. Or if luck would permit it, perhaps even beyond that. However, the prerequisite to viewing the Perfect Harmonization Realm cultivation technique manuals in the cultivation hall is for one to be a 5-star Master Teacher, and an adequate amount of academic credit. For the time being, I should first try to become a 5-star Master Teacher first. Despite the sea of knowledge hidden within the cultivation hall, there was a price for its entry. As a 4-star Master Teacher, Zhong Xian was only qualified to view the Consonant Spirit Realm and Cosmos Bridge Realm cultivation technique manuals at the moment. The Perfect Harmonization Realm cultivation technique manuals were currently beyond his reach. And more importantly, in the first place, he would need some academic credits to enter the cultivation hall. Naturally, he had no academic credits having just enrolled in the academy. He would only be turned away at the entrance even if he were to head for the cultivation hall. To qualify for the 5-star Master Teacher examination, I would need 5-star supporting occupation, and at the moment, the only occupation that I have at that rank is appraiser. It seems like I'll need to prepare a bit before taking the examination. How troublesome. Zhong Xian rubbed in glabella in frustration. For each advancement in one's Master Teacher rank, one would have to take on another supporting occupation while raising the ranks of all supporting occupation to the corresponding Master Teacher rank. Too often were there Master Teachers who were hindered not by their cultivation, but their inability to bring up the required number of supporting occupations to the required rank to be promoted. So far, the only 5-star supporting occupation Zhongxian had was appraiser. As for the remaining supporting occupations, formation master, physician, painter, and beast tamer were at 4-star, while apothecary was at 3-star. While Zhongxian had other supporting occupations such as poison master and soul oracle, those occupations were often frowned upon due to their history and their nature, and he might be shunned for learning their skills. Thus he wouldn't be able to consider them for his promotion prerequisites. I should pay a visit to the other schools while I have the time to take the examinations for my supporting occupations. After some contemplation on the matter, Zhongxian thought that it would be better for him to take things a step at a time. He wasn't in a rush for time anyway, and the academy provided a convenient platform for him to take the examinations as well. If he could clear as many examinations as he could hear, he could be spared the trouble from trying to find the occupation guilds in the future. I have managed to compile the Heaven's Path Smith art recently, but I haven't gotten a chance to take the examination yet. Perhaps I should take the examination for it first. Eventually, Zhongxian decided to visit the blacksmith school first. Through compiling the books Wu Yangzi had left behind, his current smithing proficiency could be said to be on par, or even superior to a 6-star pinnacle blacksmith. Thus, he could take the 6-star blacksmith examination straight without a problem. At the same time, this was a good opportunity for him to get a view on the capability of the blacksmith school. With this thought in mind, Zhongxian stood up without hesitation and walked out of his residence. By the time he stood out, Wu Chan and the others had already left. After all, as seniors in the school, it was indeed embarrassing for them to remain here after losing to a freshman. Zhongxian went back to the massive building and swiftly found Huang Xing and the others. From them, he got the location of the blacksmith school, and swiftly made his way over. Of the 10 schools, the blacksmith school was second only to the apothecary school. There were many students who took it as their supporting occupation, and even when he was a distance away, he could already see a huge crowd moving to and fro the area. Perfect harmonization realm, ethereal treading realm. Zhongxian gauged the cultivation of the crowd by sweeping through them with his eye of insight. There were plenty of students who had reached perfect harmonization realm and ethereal treading realm among the crowd, and there was even a handful who had reached chrysalis realm. With such strength, they would stand unchallenged in Huanyu Empire. Even in Hongyuan Empire, they stood amongst the top. As expected of the blacksmith school, it was indeed incredible. After asking around, Zhongxian soon found the area where blacksmith examinations were held. The schools in the Master Teacher Academy were associated with the respective occupation guilds, so the results of the examinations held here were officially recognized. In other words, by clearing the blacksmith examination here, he could receive an official emblem from the Blacksmith Guild. Considering how there were nearly 100,000 master teachers in the academy, if they had to head out to their respective guilds to take the examination, not only would it be a huge inconvenience to the master teachers, it would also be a great burden on the guilds in the vicinity as well. Thus, the occupations had decided to set up a branch within the respective schools to oversee the examination so as to make things convenient. Blacksmith Guild, Hongyuan Academy Branch. Zhongxian glanced at the plaque hung in front of a towering building before walking in. The vast lounge was filled bustling with a huge crowd. Zhongxian estimated that there was probably at least a few hundred people in here. Tailor-made spirit intermediate tier weapon from a 5-star blacksmith, priced at only half an academic credit. I have a spirit intermediate tier saber fresh from the forge, going at just 1 academic credit. Don't miss this opportunity. You won't see another weapon as cheap as this. I'm lacking a golden forest ore, and I am willing to trade 2 academic credits for it. 3 searing blaze stones, going at 1 academic credit each. It was as if Zhongxian had leaped into a market. Some were offering weapon forging services, some were selling their forged weapons, some were buying all kinds ores, and some were selling all kind of smithing resources. Since most of them were dressed in a master teacher robe, they should be students of the academy. The purchasing power of academic credits sure is amazing. After taking a look around the stores, Zhongxian couldn't help but notice that most trades were conducted using academic credits. When Zhongxian first heard about the importance of academic credits from Luo Chichi, He had thought that its price would, at best, be equivalent to middle-tier spirit stones. However, perhaps due to the fact that academic credits were essential in accessing most facilities in the Master Teacher Academy, its value seemed to be comparable to even high-tier spirit stones. It was no wonder why Luo Chichi and the others had gone all the way to Huanyu Empire to search for Wu Yang's underground chamber for just a handful of academic credits. It seemed like it wasn't easy to earn academic credits at all. Otherwise, 5-star blacksmiths wouldn't have to go to the extent of setting up stores as if roadside vendors. The items they were offering would be invaluable treasures back in Huanyu Empire, but they weren't even worth half an academic credit in here. Is there anything you need? After squeezing through the crowd to reach the reception desk with much difficulty, Zhongxian found a young lady smiling at him. Through asking around, Zhongxian learned that the receptionists were also the students of the academy as well. They had accepted this mission from the academy to earn academic credits. While such missions were humble, they were neither dangerous nor skill-based, so it was more suited for the less skilled students. I wish to take the blacksmith examination, Zhongxian said. May I know what rank are you going for? I'll make arrangements for you right now. Upon hearing that the young man before her was going to take the blacksmith examination, the young lady's eyes immediately lit up. I'll take the 5-star examination. After a moment of hesitation, Zhongxian replied. If the examination was knowledge-based, it wouldn't be a trouble for him to pass the 6-star examination. However, that was very unlikely to be the case. Considering his lacking proficiency in smithing, as well as his lacking cultivation, the products he could smith would likely be unflattering. Thus, he decided to play it safe and take the 5-star examination first. In any case, his current goal was to advance to become a 5-star master teacher for the time being anyway. 5-star? The lady nodded with a smile and said, May I have your 4-star emblem and your student token? I'll help you register for the examination. Emblem? Student token? Zhongxian's face reddened in embarrassment. I don't have any of those yet. Zhongxian had never taken the blacksmith examination before, so he didn't even have a 1-star emblem. On the other hand, as a freshman who had just entered the academy a few hours ago, his name wasn't even listed in the academy's records yet. How could he possibly have a student token on hand? You don't have those. The young lady froze for an instant before her smile vanished into a frown. Who are you then? What are you doing at our Master Teacher Academy? Chapter 730. The importance of academic credits. Anyone without a student token couldn't be considered as a student of their academy. If that was the case, who in the world was the young man before her? As one of the very few major academies under Qingyuan-conferred empire that served as a cradle for aspiring master teachers, only those who possessed superior talent or capabilities were allowed to step onto its premises. I am a freshman from this year's batch. I just entered the academy, so I haven't received my student token yet. Realizing that the other party had misunderstood that he was an outsider, Zhongxian hurriedly explained. A freshman? The young lady was stunned for an instant before it dawned on her that the entrance examination was just held earlier today. She couldn't help but shake her head. To think that a freshman would visit the blacksmith school on his very first day in the middle of the night instead of resting. I'll be honest with you. To take the blacksmith examination, you'll require a student token, the corresponding emblem, and academic credits. Without academic credits, no one will bother going through the trouble of preparing the examination for you. Upon realizing that Zhongxian was a freshman, the young lady explained. I'll require academic credit for this as well. A bitter smile crept onto Zhongxian's lips. Of course. Even if you were to take the examination in the guilds outside the academy, you will still need to place spirit stones with the guild as a deposit. If there's nothing on the line, there would surely be a few who would come to try their luck every day, wasting the efforts of those preparing the examinations and the resources of the Master Teacher Academy, the young lady harumphed. For a freshman to attempt to take the examination without even getting a clear idea of how the academy's system works, was he just that brazen or simply negligent? Zhongxian scratched his head. She was right. Under normal circumstances, if one wanted to take an examination in a guild, one would have to place a fixed deposit with the guild first, and it would only be returned if one clears the examination. This served as a barrier to deter the arrogant and those trying their luck. The Master Teacher Academy seemed to follow the same policy as well, just that instead of a deposit of spirit stones, it was academic credits now. How many academic credits will I require to take the 5-star blacksmith examination? Zhong Xian asked. To take a 5-star supporting occupation examination will typically take 2 academic points, whereas a 6-star examination will require 4 academic points, the lady replied. 2 points. Zhong Xian was dumbstruck. May I also clarify another issue? In other guilds, the deposit will be returned if one were to clear the examination. Does this apply here as well? Having walked around the blacksmith school, he had roughly grasped how difficult it was to earn academic credits. Considering how even smithing a spirit intermediate tier weapon for another might not even be worth half an academic credit, 2 points was indeed an astronomical sum. It would be great if he could claim a refund if he were to clear the examination. Otherwise, he would surely have to spend a huge amount of academic credits to clear the necessary examinations required for him to become a 5-star master teacher. Refund? How could the academic credits possibly be refunded? The young lady shook her head upon hearing Zhong Xian's words. Just remember this: in order to live in the academy, possessing academic credits is a must. In here, no other currency is more useful than academic credits. To earn academic credits, you will have to clear missions, complete tasks, or break existing record. Alright, you should return for now. I might still be able to give you some leeway regarding your lack of a student token since you are a student of our Master Teacher Academy, but without academic credits, you won't be able to even activate the Ocean of Weapons to take the examination. Activate the Ocean of Weapons? The Ocean of Weapons is an artifact crafted in a collaboration between the Blacksmith School and Celestial Designer School to automate examinations. Once activated, the examinee will be brought into a simulation, where he would craft a weapon through a puppet. As long as his crafted weapons meet the requirements, he would be considered to have cleared the examination. Even though the young lady was starting to get impatient at this point, she still answered Zhong Xian's query politely. Simulation? Puppet? Wouldn't a practical examination where one undergoes the entire smithing process be a more accurate indicator of skill? Zhong Xian asked curiously. Most guilds that he had been would demand the examinees to display their true prowess. Thus, he couldn't help but be a little bewildered when the other party mentioned simulation and puppets. Could it be that one didn't need to smith a weapon for real to clear the examination? It would indeed be a better indicator of skill if one could undergo the entire smithing process, but do you know how expensive are the materials required for smithing are? Of the 100,000 master teachers in the academy, there are at least 50,000 of them who have smithing as their supporting occupation. If we were to have each of them smith a real weapon, how much valuable ores and metals would be wasted? The young lady harumphed. However, you need not worry, while it is an illusion, you will be ranked based on the data we gathered from several hundred 6-star pinnacle blacksmiths ever since the inception of the academy. As long as the core of your smithing aligns with theirs, you will surely clear the examination. The disparity in results would only be at most 1 in a billion. While it was true that the Ocean of Weapons was a smithing simulation, it had been refined by innumerable 6-star blacksmiths over the years, making extremely lifelike. As long as one could successfully smith a weapon inside the simulation, they would surely be able to succeed in real life as well, and vice versa. I see. Zhong Xian nodded in realization. Indeed. Considering how there were 50,000 blacksmiths in the academy, there would at least be 1,000 who would take the examinations each year. If the academy were to conduct a real practical examination for each of them, how much precious ores and metals would they waste each year? It was one thing if they had passed and forged a decent weapon, but considering the success ratio over the years, it was likely that most of the ores and metals would be ruined. No matter how wealthy the Master Teacher Academy was, this was an expense they couldn't afford to bear. Furthermore, unlike medicinal herbs, ores and metals were depletable resources. As such, no blacksmith would be willing to see so much precious resources going to waste as well each year. As such, the Master Teacher Academy decided to develop a simulation to conduct the examinations instead. Alright, you should return now. Even if you do possess the capability to pass the 5-star blacksmith examination, you will still need 2 academic credits. Without that, I won't be able to give you any leeway even if I wanted to. The young lady waved Zhongxian away. If I recall correctly, you said that to earn academic credits, we can either clear missions, complete tasks, or break existing records. May I know how does breaking the existing records work? Knowing that he would be unable to do anything without sufficient academic credits, Zhongxian continued asking. Break existing records? The young lady's eyes began flying around the place, and blood nearly gushed from her mouth. Probably only a freshman like the other party would dare to spout such arrogant word. Those achievements were termed as records for a reason. There was no master teacher in the academy who could surpass it. As a freshman, it is understandable for you to lack knowledge about the functioning of the academy, so I explained them to you patiently. But now, you are telling me that you intend to break existing records to earn academic credits. You must be dreaming. If academic credits could be earned that easily, why would the others go through so much trouble of setting up their own store? Seriously, shouldn't there be a limit to your naivety? Indeed. May I know what records are there? I would like to try challenging them. Zhongxian replied. Missions would likely be more troublesome to deal with, or else a request wouldn't be made for it. As for tasks, Zhongxian hadn't been acquainted with any teacher yet, so that would be out of question. Thus, the only remaining option for him to earn academic credits quickly was to break records. Of course, he would try to pick out the easier ones to earn some points first. For the harder ones, he could attempt them later, after he browses through the library. As the saying goes, money makes the downfall of a hero. Without academic credits, even if he possesses superior capability, he would still find his activities severely restricted in the Master Teacher Academy. You. Seeing the fellow before her going on and on about breaking records, the young lady shook her head in displeasure. Do you even understand why they are called records? Do you honestly think that you can surpass them just because you want to? Initially, the young lady was still thinking that this freshman was diligent, rushing to the blacksmith school right after clearing the entrance examination, and she respected him for it. That was the reason why she chose to answer his queries patiently. However, as the fellow before her got more and more arrogant, she found her patience swiftly wearing thin, and hostility was beginning to take its place. Nevertheless, she tried her best to rein in her fury as she gestured casually. If you wish to give it a try, so be it. The passageway of records is over there, feel free to take a look. However, allow me to give you a word of advice. Don't enter any of them easily, or else you might be thrown out of the blacksmith school. These records represented the achievements of the talented predecessors of the blacksmith school, and they were a symbol of honor. Challenging these records without the capability to back it up could be considered as a sign of disrespect to these predecessors, and one would be severely punished for it. Furthermore, being humiliated was just one matter, but one could potentially be severely injured while challenging those records if one wasn't sufficiently strong. Over there. Zhongxian glanced at the direction where the young lady was gesturing toward, but his view was obstructed by a huge crowd moving to and fro the area. I am free now, so allow me to lead you over. With a proud harumph, the young lady raised her head and led the way. Since you spoke so arrogantly about breaking the records, let's see how you will make a fool out of yourself then. As a freshman, it was one thing for you to be ambitious. However, to declare so proudly that you would break the existing records of the blacksmith school, who do you think you are? If it was that easy to do so, why do you think there would be people here offering their services to smith weapons or selling their work? Why do you think students would go through all the trouble, braving through life and death situations to clear difficult missions? Of all of the conceited men I have seen, you top the list. The fellow before her was most likely a high-flyer from some rural area who had never ventured into the greater world. Accustomed to being the top, he naturally thought of himself as superior to others, not knowing that his outlook was merely like a frog in a well. Oblivious to the fact that he had already left a terrible impression on the lady before him, Zhongxian followed behind her closely through the crowd. Before long, he found himself standing before a black door. This door somewhat resembled those he saw during his 2-star master teacher examination in Tianwu Kingdom. There were words written on the white wall beside the door, melting 3 black crystal or in 10 minutes. Accomplished by 6-star blacksmith Zheng Rong in the 3784th year of the establishment of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. Diverting the earth flames to completely melt a lump of glacier silver within 2 hours. Accomplished by 6-star blacksmith. Withstanding the heat within the chamber of earth flame for 17 minutes. Accomplished by 6-star blacksmith Liu Han. These were the records set by the predecessors of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, and the details of whom and when it was achieved was written on it as well. After taking a casual glance, Zhong Xian's face gradually turned grim. To be honest, these records were indeed incredible even from his point of view. Taking just the black crystal ore for example, this object was known to be one of the hardest ores to process. Even a typical 7-star blacksmith would require at least an hour to melt it down, but the record holder Zheng Rong actually managed to do it within 10 minutes. That was an astounding feat. Even Zhong Xian, with his current cultivation realm, would be unable to do the same. This was even more so for glacier silver. This material known to be impossible to be melted through normal flames. The only way to forge a weapon out of it was to soften it by exposing it to earth flames for a prolonged period of time and slowly mold it into a weapon. Generally speaking, such a process would take several months, and yet, the record holder had managed to melt it down into liquid metal within 2 hours. So, do you think you can rival their achievements? Glancing at the arrogant young fellow beside her, the young lady scoffed. It's not impossible, but it'll be troublesome. Zhong Xian scratched his head. If he were to really set his mind to it, he was confident of surpassing those records. However, he would have to pay a hefty price for it as well. The price he had to pay wasn't worth that bit of academic credits. Taking glacier silver for example, as long as he were to infuse his Heaven's Path zhenqi into the earth flame to intensify the heat, it should be possible for him to melt it fully within an hour. However, the zhenqi he would have to expend to do so would reach a fearsome level. Furthermore, there was a risk that he might expose the secret regarding his Heaven's Path zhenqi as well. If that were to happen, there would be no doubt that others would attempt to acquire his secret, even at the expense of his life. That was how great the allure of Heaven's Path zhenqi was. While he had Yang Shi to keep such people in check, it was still best for him to steer clear of trouble if possible. You're saying that you can break these records? How conceited. Hearing the conversation the duo had, a blacksmith stepped forward and sneered. Li Xian, where on earth did you find such an arrogant fellow? Chapter 731, Chamber of Earth Flame. Zhong Xian turned around to take a look. The other party was a young man who seemed to be in his 30s. The brilliant 5 stars pinned on his chest indicated that he was a 5-star master teacher, Senior Luo Yang. Upon seeing the young man, the young lady whom the other party had identified as Li Xian leaped in fright, and she hurriedly bowed her head politely. Isn't Senior Luo Yang one of the top 10 master teachers in grade 4? If I recall correctly, he's also one of the top 5-star pinnacle blacksmiths in the blacksmith school. To utter such haughty words in his presence, that fellow must be asking for a beating. Indeed, that fellow is acting far too frivolously here. This is the blacksmith school, not a bragging competition. How did such a person even pass the entrance examination in the first place? I have seen most of the famous grade 1 and grade 2 students, but his face looks unfamiliar to me. He's probably just saying those words to attract attention. The passageway of records represented the pride and achievements of the blacksmith school. Only the top blacksmiths in the school would dare to gather here and challenge the records. But even so, most of them would come with the intention of challenging themselves, not to surpass the existing records. After all, the records signified the very pinnacle of the blacksmith school over its millenniums of existence. Yet, this fellow came here and declared that it's not impossible, but it'll be troublesome. Naturally, these words would incur the displeasure and hostility of the geniuses here. Even the top blacksmiths of the academy school dared not to utter such word. It took those geniuses here all they had to not rush up and pummel that arrogant fellow. Reporting to senior, he is. Under the glare of a renowned grade 4 student, Li Xian's body trembled uncontrollably in fear. He's a newly enrolled student, and he's here to take a look around. A freshman? Upon hearing that the other party was just a freshman, Luo Yang shook his head in disappointment and fury, The quality of the students are getting worse and worse with each passing generation. The passageway of records symbolizes the blood and sweat of countless predecessors of our blacksmith school. How can you allow just anyone to enter here and besmirch this place? At this point, Luo Yang's eyebrows shot up, and his voice grew sharper. What are you still waiting for? Scram. Yes. Li Xian swiftly nodded as she tugged Zhong Xian out with her. However, to her shock, the latter refused to budge. Instead, he turned to Luo Yang with an annoyed expression and questioned, "Are you the head of the blacksmith school?" "I'm not." Taken aback, Luo Yang replied in confusion. The other students watching the commotion were stumped by Zhong Xian's abrupt question as well. "One of the 10 great master teachers?" Zhong Xian continued asking. "That's not it either." "So, an elder of the blacksmith school?" "Of course not." "What are you driving at?" Annoyed by Zhong Xian's persistent questioning, Luo Yang finally snapped. "If you are neither the head of the blacksmith school nor one of the 10 great master teachers nor an elder of the blacksmith school, why the heck are you ranting here for?" Zhong Xian shook his head with a sigh. "Why the heck are you interfering with us if you have no place here? What a meddlesome fellow you are." "Ah." Li Xian was still wondering what Zhong Xian was going to say when she heard those words. Her body began shaking violently, and she nearly fainted from sheer fear. "Do you know who you standing before? How can you speak to him like that? He's a grade 4 student, a 5-star high-tier teacher, a transcendent mortal 8 Dan expert. For a freshman like you to talk back to him like that, aren't you afraid of being pummeled to death?" Everyone else in the passageway of records also glanced at one another, their eyes bulging from astonishment. Arrogant. They had never seen someone as arrogant as this. Furious, Luo Yang's face turned so red that it looked as if he would erupt at any moment. "What did you say?" "Nothing much. Just that you should do whatever you have to do, and don't hinder me from earning academic credit." Couldn't be bothered with the other party, Zhong Xian turned his attention back to the records around him. Having read so many books on smithing, his comprehension of the subject had already reached an extremely profound level. It was possible that the head of the blacksmith school might not even be a match for him in terms of their understanding of smithing. The only thing that was lacking was his cultivation. If only he has reached Saint Realm, he would be able to sweep through all of the records easily. But with his current cultivation, it would be a little troublesome. "All right, I'll take this." After contemplating for a moment, Zhong Xian swiftly chose the record he wanted to challenge. He felt that there was a good chance that he could surpass the existing record, so he turned to Li Xian and asked, "If you don't mind, help me apply for this. I want to challenge this record." "Challenge?" Li Xian froze. "You still want to challenge the records after seeing the existing ones? Do you really think that you can surpass any of these?" The crowd who was watching the commotion also glanced at one another and shook their heads. After offending a higher grade student, you still want to challenge a record? Did someone knock the sense out of you? With such a cocky attitude, how did you even pass the master teacher examination and get into this academy on top of that? "Yuan, I want to challenge this chamber of earth flame. I'll be depending on you to make the application for me." Zhong Xian replied calmly. The chamber of earth flames was a scorching chamber heated by tapping into earth flames. The longer that one can remain in there, the stronger one's physical body is likely to be. As blacksmiths, it is inevitable that one will be exposed to intense heat. If one doesn't possess a sufficiently strong body, one will easily lose concentration in the midst of smithing, resulting in misjudgment and mistakes. As such, a strong physical body that is resistant to heat is imperative for blacksmiths. The reason why Zhong Xian chose this over the other challenges was because he had cultivated the quintuple incandescence golden body and tempered his body using earth flame. The underground chamber might be hot, but he was confident of holding on for more than 17 minutes. As such, it should be easier for him to clear this challenge as opposed to the others. Chamber of earth flame? Is that fellow a fool? To choose that of everything else? Is he tired of living? I have no idea. Perhaps being a freshman, he doesn't know how fearsome it is, and here I thought he might at least stand a chance. To think that he would be an idiot instead. Upon hearing the record which Zhong Xian wanted to challenge, Everyone turned their eyes to him with gazes seeming to suggest that they were staring at a fool. Even Luo Yang, who was so furious that he could kill Zhongxian with a single slap, widened his eyes in astonishment. The Chamber of Earth Flame was also known as the Chamber of Obliteration or the Death Record. Over the years, most of those who attempted to challenge this record ended up either dead or crippled. Putting everything aside, the current record holder, 6-star blacksmith Liu Han, had managed to survive inside for 17 minutes, but he ended up searing every single inch of his flesh, damaging his foundation. Eventually, he died before he even reached 150. For a saint, dying at 150 was definitely considered as a premature death. Luo Yang had also attempted this record himself, but he fled just 3 minutes after entering. As for the others, even though they had never experienced it personally, they had also heard of how terrifying it was from the others. If there was a record on the record which most would want to avoid challenging, this would definitely be ranked at the top of the list. And yet, that fellow chose that single record which everyone was dying to avoid. Not to mention, he even proudly declared that he could clear the existing record. Has living become that tiresome for you that you have to rush to your death? In the Chamber of Earth Flame, flames would sprout from every crook and nanny, making it impossible for you to avoid them at all. Your skin will be seared by blazing heat. Do you want to reconsider your option? Shocked, Li Xian hurriedly tried to persuade the young man beside her. As infuriated she was by that young man, she was still the one who brought him here, and she couldn't possibly watch as he leaps to his death. Don't worry, you can go ahead and make arrangement. If I find myself at the limit of my tolerance, I'll immediately leave the chamber. Knowing that the other party was worried about him, Zhongxian replied. This. Seeing Zhongxian's insistence, Li Xian realized that she would be unable to change his mind, so she could only give in. All right then. Actually, there's no need to apply for anything beforehand. All you have to do is to place your palm against the door, and after stepping in, declare which is the record you wish to challenge, and the mechanism will send you to your destination. Zhongxian nodded. Thank you. Leaving these words behind, he walked up to the door leading to the Chamber of Earth Flame. Freshman, what is your name? Seeing that the fellow was insistent on entering the chamber, Luo Yang harumphed. If you can survive 3 minutes in there, I can overlook your prior disrespectful behavior. Even though Zhongxian had acted extremely arrogantly, he did feel a slight bit of respect for him for being willing to challenge the Chamber of Earth Flames even after knowing how terrifying it was. My name is Zhongxian. Zhongxian replied with a slight smile as he placed his palm on the door. Jia. The door to the chamber opened, and he walked in. Upon entering the chamber, the doors behind him immediately closed, plunging the surroundings into darkness. I will challenge the Chamber of Earth Flame, Zhongxian declared. Jia. As soon as he spoke those words, the ground beneath him rumbled as a mechanism came to life. There were various overlaps between the skills of a blacksmith and a celestial engineer. As such, the two schools were particularly close to one another. This passageway, or perhaps it might be more appropriate to call it a lift, seemed to be installed with an extremely profound mechanism, allowing it to process human speech and transport the challenger to his destination. A moment later, the rumbling came to a halt. Darkness veiled the entire area, leaving it impossible for Zhongxian to determine where he was. Nevertheless, based on the echoes in the area, it seemed like he had arrived in a massive chamber. Just as he was about to activate his eye of insight to perceive his surroundings, a bundle of flames abruptly lit up before him. It swiftly grew into a blazing flame that spread across the entire chamber. A furious surge of heat wave gushed at him, threatening to burn his skin to crisp. Hot! Zhongxian exclaimed with a grim expression. He thought that the Chamber of Earth Flame would at most be as warm as the flames in the cleansing lake. If there was any lava, he could even dive in and attempt to absorb the spiritual energy within it while tempering his body. But it seemed like he had underestimated the difficulty of this task. His surroundings were raging with a roaring blaze. It was already taking his entirety to maintain a layer of zhenqi to ward off the flames, so how could he possibly cultivate under such circumstances? At this moment, he felt as if he had been stuffed into an oven. If he were to stop the circulation of his zhenqi, he might find himself well done. It was no wonder why the others had shot him looks of sympathy when he chose to challenge this record. It was indeed worthy of the fearsome reputation it held. If this were to continue, I might not be able to even sustain for 2 minutes. Zhongxian frowned as he drove his zhenqi to fend off the searing heat. He thought that this would be a walk in the park for him, especially since he had mastered the first incandescence of the quintuple incandescence golden body, but it wasn't as easy as he thought it out to be. Even with his Heaven's Path zhenqi, he couldn't sustain himself too long in here. Something is weird here. Normal earth flames shouldn't be this hot. Such a thought plagued Zhongxian's mind. Normal earth flames, even those buried deep within the lava, should be tolerable for him, given his transcendent mortal 6-dan pinnacle cultivation and Heaven's Path zhenqi. He should be able to swim in there freely without being burnt. There was something particularly unnatural about the earth flame before him. At this temperature, his physical body wasn't the only thing that was being seared. Even his soul was being damaged by the unbelievable heat. If it comes down to it, I'll just have my clone take my place while I hide inside the ant hive nest. Zhongxian thought as he rubbed his glabella. While the heat was a little beyond him, he didn't have any worry about breaking the record. As terrifying as the earth flame may be, it wouldn't be able to faze his clone in the least. However, that would, in some sense, be considered as cheating. I should first try to see what's going on in here first. After a moment of hesitation, Zhongxian suppressed his urge to swap with his clone, and thin strings began surfacing in his eyes, eye of insight. Wang. Soon, Zhongxian realized what was amiss. This isn't a natural chamber. The heat seems to be drawn in by a man-made formation, and the formation core is 4 searing blaze stone. No, this isn't searing blaze stone but... After gazing at the depths of the flames for a moment, Zhongxian's eyes lit up, and his body began to tremble in agitation. Earth Flame Heart. Chapter 732, Second Incandescence. Earth Flame Heart is an ore formed at the very core of the earth flames after several thousand years of refinement and tempering. It contains an incomparable quantity of fire energy, and if an ordinary cultivator were to just touch it, they would be scalded. Usually, 6-star blacksmiths would use it as a coal to process ores which are exceptionally resistant to heat. Who could have thought that it would be used as a core to the formation of this chamber of earth flame? Under his eye of insight, Zhongxian could see the incredible profoundness of the formation before him. It was crafted in a manner that allowed it to take in spiritual energy from the surroundings to sustain the emanation of heat from the earth flame heart. As such, despite the passing of many years, the earth flame heart was still brimming with power. It would be cheating if I were to stop the formation. I should try to break the record openly instead. Zhongxian thought after studying the formation for a moment. Even though the formation was extremely complex, he could still stop it very easily. Once he were to do so, the heat in the chamber would recede, allowing him to remain here as long as he could. Just that, if he were to do so, he might be placed under the suspicion of cheating, and the blacksmith school might not recognize his accomplishment if they were to notice it. After all, the main motive behind this challenge was to gauge the resilience of one's physical body, not to test one's ability to stop a formation. Besides, did he really have to go that far as to cheat for a mere record? Was he such a person? This will be useful to my quintuple incandescence golden body, Zhongxian muttered with a smile on his lips. The reason why he was delighted upon seeing the earth flame heart wasn't due to him finding the core of the formation, but that it was one of the materials required for the cultivation of the quintuple incandescence golden body's second incandescent. Back then, when he was in the underground chamber, he had merged the quintuple incandescence golden body with many other physical body cultivation techniques he had obtained from Luo Chichi. While he did manage to compile a complete Heaven's Path cultivation technique, it still had 4 flaws with it, each corresponding from the second incandescence to the 5th incandescent. The flaw for the second incandescence was that he would require earth flame heart to successfully cultivate it. However, earth flame heart was an extremely rare material that could hardly be found anywhere. Thus, Zhongxian could only stop right after the first incandescence. However, since he had encountered it here, how could he possibly allow this opportunity to slip past his fingers? Since the first incandescence had boosted his physical body strength to 4 million ding, Would it be the same for the second incandescence as well? Let me give it a try. Without any hesitation, Zhongxian immediately dived into action. Dissipating the layer of zhenqi he had been using to protect his body, he opened up all of the pores in his body and began to absorb the spiritual energy from the surroundings furiously. If it had been anyone else, even they had cultivated the quintuple incandescence golden body as well, they wouldn't dare to behave so rashly, especially when they didn't know where the earth flame heart was. However, Zhongxian was different. Possessing both the Eye of Insight and Library of Heaven's Path, the floors of the chamber would literally appear before him. He could easily tell which regions were suitable for cultivating, allowing him to absorb the spiritual energy from the flames without hurting his own body. Activating the red dust heaven ascending steps, Zhongxian positioned himself in a sitting position above the center of the room with the 4 earth flame hearts directed accurately at 4 acupoints in his body. With a massive inhalation, the flames in the surroundings began gushing into his body as though fire dragons ascending to the skies. Pilipala. Under the intense heat of the fire dragons, his muscles and bones began emitting loud cracking noises. At the same time, his face swiftly flushed crimson, and he clenched his fists tightly in agony. Flawed cultivation techniques were indeed far more difficult to cultivate. Putting everything aside, just for this second incandescence, not only did he require the earth flame heart, his body would also undergo immense pain as it was tempered by the flames. If not for his strong mental resilience and soul, he might have fainted at this very instant. Gugugu. Nevertheless, despite the intense pain, the effects of the tempering was apparent. His physical body, which had already reached an extremely stable state and was difficult to further strengthen, was changing at a visible pace. Its stamina, durability, defense, every aspect of his body was being reinforced. 4 million ding. 4,500,000 ding. 5 million ding. 6 million ding. Time swiftly passed, and before long, he had already reached 8 million ding. At 8 million ding, his physical strength was already comparable to a perfect harmonization realm primary stage expert. In other words, just in terms of physical strength he could draw from his body, he could fight on equal grounds with a perfect harmonization realm expert. If he were to utilize his zhenqi and soul cultivation on top of that, he could match even an ethereal treading expert. The enhancement he had received was indeed frightening. Hu! Breathing out a mouthful of turbid air, Zhongxian slowly descended to the ground. With this, he had successfully cultivated the second incandescence of his quintuple incandescence golden body. For the third incandescence, he would require origin heavy water as a catalyst. Thus, he could only stop at this point. After cultivating the second incandescence, the heat here is no longer able to faze me. Zhongxian thought as he glanced at his surroundings quietly. With the advancement of his quintuple incandescence golden body, not only was his physical strength enhanced, his body had also become immune to the heat emitted by the earth flame heart. While this place could easily burn anyone else to cinders, he could easily lie down in this area and sleep for as long as he could without suffering a burn. It seems to be a little too early to leave yet. I need to break the record in order to receive academic credits. Zhongxian frowned. As the quintuple incandescence golden body was a heaven's path cultivation technique as well, and he was only cultivating a fifth of it, it was unlikely that too much time had passed during his cultivation. Even though he didn't keep track of the timing, the chances were that he would fail the challenge if he were to leave now. Perhaps I can cultivate my soul in here while waiting. Since he had no choice but to wait anyway, Zhongxian decided to draw his soul out to cultivate. The reason why the spiritual energy within the cleansing lake could be absorbed by his soul was because it had been refined and cleaned by the earth flame beneath it. On the other hand, a formation augmented by earth flame heart had been set up within this chamber. Under the intense heat, the spiritual energy here had also been refined, making it suitable for a soul to absorb. Thus, disregarding his physical body, Zhongxian's soul floated in the midst of the chamber. Due to the flaws in the soul-guiding formula, soul oracles feared sunlight, flames, and everything that was young in nature. However, having cultivated the perfected soul-guiding formula, Zhongxian's soul possessed no such flaws. As a result, despite the overwhelming heat in the surroundings, his soul was still able to fly around freely without suffering any damage. Even though he only had the consonant spirit realm Heaven's Path soul art, making it impossible for him to make a breakthrough, he could still absorb spiritual energy to enhance his soul, just like what he did in the cleansing lake. Back then, due to his clone frenziedly wresting spiritual energy from him, his soul wasn't able to reach 10 meters. However, with the spiritual energy within this chamber, he could try to surpass that bottleneck. TZZZZZZ. The refined spiritual energy in the area began flowing swiftly towards Zhongxian's soul, nourishing it. As I expected, it works. Zhongxian's eyes lit up with excitement. As expected of one of the treasures required in the cultivation of the quintuple incandescence golden body. After many years of refinement under the intense heat of the earth flame heart, the spiritual energy in the surroundings had become far purer than that in the cleansing lake, making it the best tonic for his soul. This time, I should finish absorbing my share before bringing clone out. With the prior experience at the cleansing lake, Zhongxian knew that his absorbing speed would surely be unable to compete with his clone, so he decided to take in whatever he could first before bringing that fellow out. While Zhongxian was busy absorbing the spiritual energy in the chamber, there was a huge mess outside the chamber. At this point, it had already been 2 hours since Zhongxian had entered the chamber of earth flame. Everyone thought that the fellow would leap out after a minute or two, but time continued to tick on, and before they knew it, it was already 2 hours. For there to be no signs of him after so long, had he already died in there? The mechanism in the chamber of earth flame has the ability to detect the presence of life. If the challenger of the record were to pass away, he would immediately be sent back out. Luo Yang frowned in confusion. He had once challenged the chamber of earth flame, so he had studied up on it and knew a fair bit about its inner working. As soon as the mechanism detects the lack of presence of any life in the chamber, it would immediately deport the challenger back to the passageway of records. Considering how that fellow hadn't been deported after such a long period of time, it could only mean that he was still alive and kicking. Did that fellow really enter the chamber of earth flame? Could he have run off to some other challenge to slack about? Otherwise, to last for 2 whole hours, was this even possible? And the truth was that he wasn't the only one who was getting frenzied over this matter. The others who had gathered around after hearing Zhongxian's arrogant declaration were also clutching their hair in madness. Most record challengers would just aim to beat the record for a few seconds, or even at most, just a minute or two. After all, these records were made by the predecessors by pushing their bodies to the very limit. Yet, to surpass it by several-fold and still remain within. Was he planning to remain in there for days? The heat from the chamber of earth flame is capable of melting even steel, and to stay there for 2 hours. Luo Yang subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he turned to Li Xian. Are you certain that he's a freshman? That's what he told me. I don't think he's lying. If he's a senior, we should have heard of him before. Li Xian hurriedly replied. Her lips were also twitching in astonishment from what was going on. Even though she was serving as the receptionist of the blacksmith school, she was also a master teacher herself, and she possessed an eye of discernment worthy of one. Based on her judgment, she could tell that Zhongxian wasn't feigning his ignorance in their interactions. For someone who didn't know the slightest thing about the records to challenge it, it was inevitable that she would regard him as arrogant. Who would have known that not only would he actually do it, he would even successfully surpass the existing record? After all, this was a record which had remained unbroken for countless years. To think that I thought that he was being conceited. Recalling how she had looked at the other party disdainfully, her face couldn't help but turn red in embarrassment. That fellow did have the capability to back up his word. Yet, her eyes failed to see through it. Freshman. On the other hand, having received the confirmation from Li Xian, Luo Yang's eyelids began twitching. All along, he had been proud of his record of remaining in the chamber of earth flame for 3 minutes, and he had been bragging about it over the years. Due to it, he had won the admiration of respect of many. Yet, he actually mocked the person who had been inside for 2 hours and longer. It would be difficult for even the 10 great master teachers to break the 17 minutes mark, needless to say, 2 hours. Upon thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a stinging sensation on his face. Senior, The chamber of earth flame is incredibly dangerous. No matter how resilient Zhongshu's physical body is, it should be impossible for him to remain in there for so long. Could something have happened to him? After waiting for a moment later, a master teacher suddenly spoke up. Records were records for a reason. To surpass them was already an incredible feat in itself, but to do so with a gap of several fold was unthinkable. Yuan, I also find the situation inconceivable. Wait for me here, I'll go and look for my teacher to ask him about this matter. Given how knowledgeable he is, he should be able to figure out what is going on. Luo Yang replied after a moment of hesitation. With those words, he walked out of the passageway of records and soon, he arrived before a room. Teacher, Luo Yang called out as he knocked on the door. Luo Yang? What's wrong? The elder in the room raised his gaze and asked. The vice head of the blacksmith school, Yuan Hong, a 6-star pinnacle master teacher and blacksmith, his standing within the blacksmith school was second only to the school head. Reporting to teacher, someone is currently challenging the chamber of earth flame. Luo Yang reported anxiously. Chamber of earth flame? The existing record of 17 minutes has left many helpless in its face. It won't be easy for anyone to surpass that. Yuan Hong remarked with a smile as he stroked his beard. Who is it? Lu Wu? Chen Hai? Or is it Du Ju? The quality of the students in the blacksmith school has been going down with each passing generation. In the current generation, they are the only ones who stand a chance for that record. Chapter 733. You still have the cheek to ask for academic credits. The students whom Yuan Hong listed were the top geniuses of the blacksmith school, possessing capability surpassing Luo Yang. Smithing required one to temper their bodies, but only a handful was willing to tolerate the painful process. As a result, there were very few capable blacksmiths in the blacksmith school. This had always been a thorn at Yuan Hong's heart, so upon hearing that someone was challenging the chamber of earth flame, he couldn't help but lament. It isn't them, it's a freshman named Zhong Xian. Luo Yang hurriedly replied. A freshman? Yuan Hong was stunned by the news. Yes, he has just passed the examination and joined the academy today, and he doesn't even have his student token yet. It seems like he hopes to earn some academic credits from beating the records so that he could activate the ocean of weapons to take the 5-star blacksmith examination. Luo Yang explained. Preposterous. Yuan Hong bellowed in fury upon hearing that a freshman who hadn't even received his student token actually went to challenge one of the records. As the vice head of the blacksmith school, he was in charge of upholding discipline amongst the students. How could a freshman who had just barely joined the academy be allowed to challenge the chamber of earth flame? Wasn't that practically suicide? Does he even know what does the chamber of earth flame represents? Even if others don't comprehend it, surely you should understand the significance of this matter. The chamber of earth flame takes a huge toll on one's physical body. As a freshman who has never gone through the systematic training of our blacksmith school, how could he possibly survive in there? The more Yuan Hong spoke, the more livid his face became. Teacher. Luo Yang tried to speak up, but he was interrupted before he could start explaining himself. All right, you are just a student, so you can't be blamed for this. If someone were to insist on challenging the records, you don't have the authority to stop them anyway. I don't mean to blame you by saying all of this, but I am enraged by how arrogant the students are becoming. Honestly, the recent few batches of students are the worst I have ever taught in my entire career. Yuan Hong sighed. He knew that it wasn't right for him to vent his anger on his student, so he shook his head and said, all right. How long has that fellow been in there? Has he suffered severe burns? Here is a bottle of clear spirit water, it should be able to treat his burns. No. That freshman is still in the chamber. Luo Yang finally found a chance to speak up amidst his teacher's words. Yuan Hong was an excellent teacher, but he had a fatal flaw: he was too naggy. Due to that, there was not a single student who wouldn't get a headache from his lectures. You just have to apply the clear spirit water on his external burns too. Just as Yuan Hong was starting to explain how the clear spirit water should be used, he suddenly froze, and his eyes began bulging from their sockets. What did you say? What do you mean by he isn't out yet? When did he enter the chamber? He entered around 2 hours ago, Luo Yang replied. 2 hours ago? Yuan Hong's body shook in astonishment, and he nearly blacked out. Indeed. I have no idea what's going on, so I came over to report this matter to you. Luo Yang replied. Report? What is the point of reporting it now? How could he possibly last for 2 hours? Most likely, he was burned to cinders within 2 seconds after he entered the chamber. Yuan Hong slammed the table before him furiously and stood up. What the heck was this? You should know how severe this matter is, and you choose to report it to me only 2 hours later. The Chamber of Earth Flame would deport any corpses back, but if one were to reduce to cinders as soon as they arrive there, the mechanism wouldn't be activated. Given that there were no movements whatsoever after 2 hours, it could only mean that the other party was dead. There's such a thing as well? I didn't know. Luo Yang was taken aback by the revelation. He only knew that corpses would be deported back immediately, but he didn't know about the matter regarding being burned to ashes. If that was the case, didn't that mean that the fellow inside was already dead? You are still too inexperienced. I have been in this Master Teacher Academy for more than 800 years, so the things I have seen is far more than the books you have read. Yuan Hong harumphed. I'll follow you over to check out the situation in the Chamber of Earth Flame. Even though it's regretful that a life is lost just like that, he brought it upon himself, acting so arrogantly despite his ignorance. However, halfway through Yuan Hong's words, the ground beneath him suddenly shook, and the sound of something collapsing abruptly rumbled deafeningly. Boom! Judging from the sound, it seemed to be coming from the passageway of records. What's going on? Astonished, the duo rushed out of the room. A freshman had just died, and this mess suddenly sprung up on them. What the heck was going on today? Bad news, Yuansha. The Chamber of Earth Flame has collapsed. A master teacher rushed into the room and reported. Collapsed? What do you mean? What collapsed? Yuan Hong was taken aback. It's the Chamber of Earth Flame in the passageway of records. The master teacher hurriedly replied. Yuan Hong nearly went insane. How could that be? It is a masterpiece created in a collaboration between the Blacksmith School and the Celestial Designer School, so how in the world did it collapse? As a part of the passageway of records, the Chamber of Earth Flame was reinforced to the very limits by the combined effort of the Blacksmith School and the Celestial Designer School. Furthermore, it was forged using top-quality materials, so how could it collapse that easily? Just what was going on? Standing by the side, Luo Yang's figure also staggered upon hearing that news. It was just a moment ago that he had reported the issue regarding the Chamber of Earth Flame when such an issue occurred. What was happening inside there? The master teacher who had charged into the room to report also seemed to be in disbelief. I'm not too sure myself as well. I only saw the entire place being reduced to ruins. Let's go over to take a look. With twitching lips, Hong Yuan immediately rushed out of the room anxiously, and before long, he was standing right before the passageway of records, or at least what it used to be. At this moment, half of the passageway of records had already collapsed, and the entire room was cloaked with dust. What happened? Luo Yang turned to Li Xian and asked in bewilderment. I have no idea either. We were waiting for Zhongshe when a loud rumbling noise suddenly sounded from the passageway of records. Before we knew it, it was already like that. Li Xian cried tearfully. She wasn't the only one who was dumbfounded by the situation. The remaining crowd in the area were also frozen in shock. No one could comprehend why the passageway of records, which had always been known for its durability, would abruptly cave in. But if one thing was for sure, considering that the Chamber of Earth Flame was at the very center of it. Zhongshe is probably dead. Luo Yang muttered as he recalled what his teacher said. However, at that moment, resounding footsteps echoed amidst the dust, and following closely was a series of violent coughing. Cough, cough. Upon hearing the sound, a jolt ran through everyone's body. They swiftly turned their sight to the source of the sound, and an approaching young man came into their vision. Who else could it be other than Zhongshe? Why you refine? Luo Yang's eyes bulged in shock at that sight, and his body began trembling uncontrollably in agitation. His teacher had just told him confidently that this fellow would have been burned to cinders by now, and yet here he was, completely unharmed without the slightest burn on his skin. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? If you are alive, why the hell did you stay in there for 2 hours? Not to mention, how in the world did you collapse the fortified chamber of earth flame? Are you a spy who is here to wreak havoc in our blacksmith school? I'm fine. At which, Zhongxian shot a glance at the ruins remaining of the passageway, and he continued awkwardly, but it seems like this passageway of records is damaged. Seems. Everyone staggered upon hearing Zhongxian's words. Look at the mess behind you. Is there even any doubt about this matter? Even a blind man could tell that it's utterly ruined. You are the freshman who went in just now? Forcing himself to calm down, Yuan Hong turned to Zhongxian and asked. That's right. Zhongxian nodded. Even though he didn't recognize the man before him, the other party harnessed incredible power within him that wouldn't lose out by too far to Elder Mo and Pavilion Master Mo. Most likely, he was an important figure of the blacksmith school. Weren't you trying to challenge the record? What happened? Yuan Hong questioned. How in the name of Kong did you collapse the chamber of earth flame while challenging the record? I'm not too sure either. After entering, I realized that the heat from the chamber of earth flame is still tolerable for me, so I started to cultivate while biding my time. Before I knew it, the entire chamber was already collapsing on me. Zhongxian replied with a crimson face. As a soul oracle, Zhongxian was able to draw his soul out to absorb spiritual energy from the surroundings directly. This allowed him to absorb spiritual energy at a far swifter pace than ordinary cultivators, and before long, with a jolt running through his body, his soul had already broken through the 10 meters bottleneck. However, this was where the calamity started. With the breakthrough, Zhongxian's rate of absorption abruptly rose significantly, and the previous absorption had already depleted a considerable amount of spiritual energy in the chamber. As a result, the earth flame heart ran out of spiritual energy far quicker than he had imagined. The earth flame heart was the core of the formation sustaining the chamber of earth flame. Without any spiritual energy to sustain it, how could the formation continue to function normally? Just like what happened in the cleansing lake, the energy in the area which was being regulated by the formation immediately went berserk, and it was only by a great stroke of fortune that an explosion didn't occur. Nevertheless, the chamber of earth flame began to cave in, and the passageway of record which was closely linked to it was affected as well. It was fortunate that Zhongxian had his soul return immediately to his body as soon as he realized something was amiss and used his zhenqi to ward off the collapsing rubble. Otherwise, he might just make history by becoming the first student to die not of heat but of collapsing rubble in the chamber of earth flame. Looking at the mess around him, an indescribable feeling of frustration and helplessness gripped Zhongxian. All he wanted to do was to break a record and earn some academic credits so that he could take the 5-star blacksmith examination. Who could have thought that this innocent desire of his would result in such a tragic accident? In any case, while he was the culprit behind this incident, he was determined to deny all allegations. Putting everything aside, just that 4 earth flame hearts were already way beyond his means to compensate. As such, the only option he had left was to feign ignorance of the matter. It collapsed on you. Before you knew it. Hearing such shameless words, everyone felt faint-headed, and Yuan Hong even staggered weakly. This chamber of earth flame has been in the blacksmith school for at least 4,000 years by now, and you are the only one of all challengers who encountered such a problem. Did you think that you can wiggle your way out of this just by feigning ignorance? Even if you were to say these words to a 3-year-old child, he wouldn't believe you. Can you at least show more sincerity and come up with a more believable lie? I'll give you one more chance. What happened? With a livid face, Yuan Hong asked once more. After entering the chamber of earth flame, I realized that the searing spiritual energy there happens to be ideal for tempering one's physical body, so I accidentally absorbed too much of it. I also didn't know that it would collapse just like that. With a deep sigh, Zhongxian could only confess honestly. Happens to be ideal for tempering one's physical body? Accidentally absorbed too much of it. Yuan Hong was speechless. The others might not know too much about the chamber of earth flame, but as a person who had participated in its reparation works, He knew very well about its inner working. There were 4 earth flame heart at the center of the formation in the chamber, and each of them harnessed incredibly fiery spiritual energy. If an ordinary human were to touch it, he would be reduced to ashes in a moment. Even a 6-star blacksmith could be roasted to death from the inside if he were to attempt to absorb the searing spiritual energy inside it. And yet, you actually found it ideal for tempering your physical body, and absorbed too much of it. How much spiritual energy did you absorb to cause the chamber of earth flame to collapse? Just as Yuan Hong was about to interrogate the young man before him further on the issue, the young man suddenly turned to look at him with a hopeful gaze and asked, "I managed to 2 hours in the chamber of earth flame, so I should have already broken the existing record. So, may I get my academic credits now?" Academic credits? You still have the cheek to ask for academic credits? Yuan Hong nearly exploded from rage. You destroyed the entire chamber of earth flame and collapsed half of the passageway of records, and you still have the audacity to speak about academic credits. Where is your sense of shame? Chapter 734. My teacher, Yang Xian, are you saying that I won't be getting any academic credits? Hearing the other party's words, Zhong Xian was stunned. Of course not. Yuan Hong flung his sleeves in displeasure. In order to uphold the integrity of the challenge, the passageway of records have a system in place to check if there was any cheating involved. Now that the entire place has collapsed, how can we ensure that you didn't use any artifact inside? Naturally, the records must be achieved using one's own capability, and the passageway of records had several systems in place to allow others to check on how the challenge went. Otherwise, if one was allowed to use artifacts as they pleased during the challenge, it would become a competition of wealth instead of capability, and the concept of challenging records would become meaningless. However, given that the entire passageway had been reduced to ruins, it would be impossible to ensure the integrity of the challenge. As such, how could they deem whether one had truly broken the record or not? Furthermore, you caused such devastating damage to the blacksmith school right after you arrived. I haven't even talked about the reparation costs yet, and here you are asking me for academic credits. You must be kidding me. This. Zhong Xian was dumbstruck. He thought that he would be able to obtain academic credits since he had already broken the record, but based on the other party's tone, it seemed like it was a hopeless cause. He had wasted his time this time around. But at the very least, he did receive something good from the challenge. Not only did he achieve second incandescence in the quintuple incandescence golden body, his soul had also successfully surpassed the 10 meters bottleneck. Since I won't be getting any academic credits from this, I'll challenge the other records then. After a moment of hesitation, Zhong Xian said. Since he was already at the blacksmith school, he should at least return with a 5-star blacksmith emblem. Otherwise, wouldn't this be a wasted trip? Challenge what? Look at the state of the passageway of records. Do you think that you can still challenge any records? Luo Yang stood up and roared furiously. How are you going to challenge the other records when the passageway of records is already wrecked? Then, how can I earn more academic credits then? Zhong Xian scratched his head. The passageway of records represents the honor and glory of the blacksmith school, and yet, you broke it as soon as you arrived. Let me give you a word of advice, don't bother thinking about academic credits anymore. Think about how you can compensate for the damages. Luo Yang gazed at Zhong Xian in pity. It took the Celestial Designer School and the Blacksmith School much effort before they managed to craft the passageway of records. It had survived the challenge of innumerable students over several millennia, and you destroyed it as soon as you came. Instead of thinking about how you can compensate for what you have done, you are still dreaming of obtaining academic credits. You sure are brazen-faced. Compensate. Zhong Xian's face twitched. After a moment of hesitation, he asked meekly, how much? Hearing those words, Luo Yang turned to his teacher. As a student, he didn't have the right to dictate the compensation amount. The Chamber of Earth Flame is forged more than 4,000 years ago by the head of the Blacksmith School and the head of the Celestial Designer School then. 4 earth flame hearts and several other valuable materials were used in its construction. Even if we were to take in the depreciation cost due to damages over time, it would still cost at least 20 high-tier spirit stones. After a moment of mental calculation, Yuan Hong replied. In most guilds, there were usually policies that spared geniuses the liability of compensating for the damage they have caused. More often than not, the guild could just report the issue to the headquarter, and the latter would send someone down to repair the relevant facilities. However, this rule didn't hold in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. After all, this place was literally a gathering of geniuses. If everyone were to act negligently and destroy as they pleased, how would the academy continue to function? Even if they were to sell the principal of the academy away, they still wouldn't be able to bear the costs. How much did you say? T20 high-tier spirit stones? Zhong Xian's body swayed weakly, and he nearly spewed blood. Are you joking with me? If I have that much spirit stones, why would I even bother going through the trouble earning academic credits? I could have just easily bought them off others. While academic credits were indeed valuable, there should be plenty of students who would be willing to sell it to him for high-tier spirit stones. Considering that you are a freshman and the matter is an unintentional doing on your part, I can reduce the compensation by half for you. You just have to pay 10 high-tier spirit stones. Hong Yuan said. 10. I don't have that much either. Zhong Xian shook his head. All in all, he only had one high-tier spirit stone, and he had obtained it from emerging as the champion of the Master Teacher tournament. Even if he were to sell all of his possessions, he couldn't possibly fork out 10 high-tier spirit stones. I know that you don't have that much, so I'll offer you an alternative then. As long as you work for the blacksmith school for 10 years, I'll consider it as you have repaid the debt. Hong Yuan waved his hands. High-tier spirit stones were used by Saint Realm experts or those attempting a breakthrough to Saint Realm. There was no way that a freshman like Zhong Xian could possibly have any of that. From the very start, Yuan Hong had intended to have Zhong Xian work to pay off his debt. It wasn't uncommon for students to work in the schools of the academy. Take the receptionist Li Xian for example. She was also a student working at the blacksmith academy to earn additional academic credits. However, in Zhong Xian's case, since he had to repay his debt, he wouldn't be receiving any academic credits for his effort. 10 years of work to repay a debt of 10 high-tier spirit stones? That is an extremely good deal. Indeed, high-tier spirit stones are incomparably valuable. Just a single one of them is worth 10,000 middle-tier spirit stones. It sure is kind of vice school head Yuan to offer such generous terms. Well, the intention of the punishment is to deter future students who engaging in similar actions. Otherwise, even if he were to work for his entire life, it's questionable whether he can repay the debt of 10 high-tier spirit stones. Hearing Yuan Hong's words, the crowd nodded in approval. To cultivators who possess significantly longer lifespan than an average human, 10 years wasn't a long period of time. For an average 4-star master teacher, 10 years might not even be enough for them to advance to 5-star. To wipe off a debt of 10 high-tier spirit stones with just 10 years of work could already be considered as an extremely lenient term. 10 years. However, contrary to the response of the crowd, Zhong Xian's lips twitched upon hearing those words. It was questionable whether he would even need to stay in this academy for half a year, let alone 10 years. If he were to really spend 10 years here, he would have already died from the innate fetal poison before he was freed. I can't accept those terms. I don't have the time to do so. Zhong Xian shook his head and rejected the offer. You can't. Yuan Hong's face turned livid, and his eyes narrowed menacingly. As the vice head of the blacksmith school, this was the first time a student was so arrogant as to bargain with him even after erring. Even after laying ruins to the passageway of records, do you not feel the slightest guilt? It's out of utmost kindness that I granted you the option of repaying your debt through work. Did you think that you are in a position to bargain with me? How about this? Allow me to take a look at the damage to see if it can be fixed. If I can fix it, I won't have to compensate the blacksmith school, right? After a long moment of hesitation, Zhong Xian suddenly asked. Fix? You? Yuan Hong stared at Zhong Xian as if he was looking at a monster. Are you sure you brought your brain out with you today? The chamber of earth flame and passageway of corridor were constructed in a collaboration between 6-star pinnacle blacksmiths and celestial designers. Even Yuan Hong himself wasn't confident if he was sufficiently skilled to repair them, But this fellow said that he wanted to give it a try. Who do you think you are? Blacksmith Grandmaster Wu Yangzi? How conceited can you get? Yuan. Zhong Xian nodded. After a moment of hesitation, he added, if I fail to fix it, I can offer you guidance on your smithing capability or your cultivation as compensation too. Offer me guidance? Audacious. Yuan Hong flew into a rage. He was an elder of the Master Teacher Academy, the vice head of the blacksmith school, a 6-star pinnacle master teacher. He was an esteemed figure throughout the Master Teacher Academy, and he had always been the one to offer guidance to others, taking others in as his disciple. Yet, a freshman actually dared to say that he could offer him guidance on his smithing or cultivation. Do you know what the heck are you saying? Was this fellow's brain fried inside the chamber of earth flame? To speak of offering guidance to vice school head Yuan. Just what is going through his mind? Luo Yang and the others widened their eyes in disbelief at those words. Brother, remember your identity. You are just a freshman. To speak of offering guidance to vice school head Yuan, did you think that you are the head of the blacksmith academy or something? Know your place. Ah. What I mean is to have my teacher offer you some pointers on your cultivation. Hearing the other party's furious bellow, Zhong Xian was taken aback for a moment before he realized the implications of what he had said, so he quickly changed his words in embarrassment. This was the side effect of disguising as Yang Shi too often. There were times which he would just find himself saying such words unwittingly. As a mere freshman, it was no wonder why the others would be annoyed to hear him speak of offering guidance to a 6-star pinnacle master teacher. Teacher. Suppressing his rage, Yuan Hong asked. My teacher Yang Xian has once offered his pointers to Pavilion Master Mo Gaoyuan, and Elder Mo is also in awe of him. Zhong Xian chuckled as he flicked his wrist and took out a token. Here is the token Elder Mo gave me. Elder Mo? You mean the head of the Beast Tamer School, Elder Mo? Taking a glance at the token, Yuan Hong's eyebrows shot up. As the vice head of the blacksmith school, it was natural that he would recognize that token. That token served as a symbol of Elder Mo's authority, and standing before it was as good as standing in the presence of Elder Mo himself. Due to the complications that came with it, Elder Mo would never give out his token easily. Even though Yuan Hong and Elder Mo were both 6-star pinnacle master teachers, there was still a significant gap in their standing and their capability. The fact that the latter was one of the 10 great master teachers spoke loudly about his capability. And furthermore, what did this fellow just say? His teacher, Yang Xian, had once offered his pointers to Mo Gaoyuan. As the head of Hongyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, Mo Gaoyuan possessed a standing on par with the 10 great master teachers. To be able to offer guidance to such a person, didn't that mean that Yang Xian was at least a 7-star master teacher? In an instant, Yuan Hong's face turned grave. If he had been thinking of strangling this ignorant fellow to death just a moment ago, at this instant, he was starting to feel a little apprehensive. Head of the Beast Tamer School? He's a school head too. Zhong Xian was taken aback. You didn't know? Judging how the other party didn't know Elder Mo's position in the academy, it didn't seem like they have a close relationship. Nevertheless, Elder Mo still chose to give him his personal token. This seemed to hint that the other party had a truly incredible teacher. Otherwise, why would one of the 10 great master teachers go to the extent of giving a freshman his token? After all, there were many ways that he could show his goodwill towards a student. It wouldn't make sense for him to give out his personal token to a person he had barely met. On the other hand, Zhong Xian shook his head in response to Yuan Hong's query. He had never heard anyone speaking about it before him, so naturally, he was unaware of it. Elder Mo is a close acquaintance of mine, but even so, I can't excuse you from the repayment. However, I can consider other alternative solutions you propose. After a moment of contemplation, Yuan Hong said. Regardless of whether what the other party said was true or not, the fact that he had Elder Mo's token in hand goes to say that how highly the latter valued him. But even with the immense authority the 10 great master teachers wielded, they couldn't override the rules of the academy. It's my mistake that I damaged the passageway of records and chamber of earth flame. Can you allow me to attempt to repair it? If it still doesn't work out after that, I'll try to find a way to repay the blacksmith school. Zhong Xian asked. Since you have Elder Mo's token in hand, you should be a trustworthy person. All right, I'll give you this opportunity then. Yuan Hong nodded. It would be best if the other party could fix the damage, but even if he were to fail, that should make him give up on any other ideas he had in mind. Elder Mo's token? Who in the world is that fellow? His teacher even offered pointers to Pavilion Master Mo? When did such an incredible figure appear amidst the freshmen? Hearing the conversation between the duo, a commotion broke out amidst the crowd. Li Xian and Luo Yang glanced at one another in astonishment. It was just a moment ago that they had shown their displeasure towards Zhong Xian. They thought that it would be fine since he was just a freshman, but who could have known that he would have such a powerful backing? To be honest, if he had taken out Elder Mo's token earlier on, they would have even willingly lent him their academic credits. Chapter 735, Repairing the Passageway with Such a Formidable Teacher. Could he have really broken the record? Before this revelation, everyone was still doubtful as to whether he had truly broken the record. However, after hearing that the other party had a formidable teacher whom even Pavilion Master Mo and Elder Mo were in awe of, their mind couldn't help but wonder if he might be speaking the truth. Master teachers who had progressed beyond 6-star possessed incredible means which they could hardly fathom. This was also the reason why the offsprings of sage clans possessed formidable capabilities far beyond their peers. Entitled from birth, the offsprings of sage clans were exposed to things that were far beyond their wildest imagination, thus paving the way to greatness. You have my gratitude. Upon hearing Yuan Hong agree to his terms, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Since it was crafted by a 6-star blacksmith and a 6-star celestial designer, he might just be able to fix it. If he were to succeed, he could spare himself from paying that heavy compensation. In a sense, not having to pay that hefty compensation could be considered as earning that sum of money as well. It couldn't be helped, he was simply too poor at the moment. He had yet to reach the point where he could spend money as he pleased. Walking over to the ruins, Zhong Xian took in a deep breath and placed his hand on the ruins. Back then, when he was still in the Chamber of Earth Flame, he had only used his Eye of Insight. As such, he hadn't compiled a book on the chamber and the passageway yet. As the mechanisms and the formation of the two were connected to form an immense structure, he should be able to compile a book on them by placing his hand against the wall. Flaws. Zhong Xian muttered in his head, and with a jolt, a book appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. He quickly turned his gaze to it. After flipping through a few pages, his eyes narrowed. The reason why the infrastructure collapsed was due to the depletion of the spiritual energy gathered in the Earth Flame Hearts, resulting in an imbalance in the formation. As the formation served as the energy supply for the mechanisms for the passageway of records, it ended up breaking down as well. If Zhong Xian wanted to fix the problem, he would have to first find 4 more Earth Flame Hearts to substitute the depleted ores. From there on, he would be able to repair and re-establish balance in the formation, and that should allow the mechanisms of the passageway to function once more as well. Repairing the formation and re-establishing balance, those were within his means. However, where was he supposed to find Earth Flame Hearts? Even if he were to put aside the fact that Earth Flame Hearts were extremely rare commodities that one could hardly find in the market, given his current wealth, he wouldn't be able to afford one even if he were to stumble on one by some coincidence. There is no way I can repair it like that unless I can solve the flaw regarding the usage of Earth Flame Hearts as catalysts for the formation. Zhong Xian fell into deep thoughts. The Earth Flame Hearts were listed as a flaw in the Library of Heaven's Path due to several compatibility issues with the formation. If Zhong Xian could find a cheaper and more effective alternative, he would be able to spare himself a lot of trouble. But this had its own problems too. What he should swap it with and how he would swap it were questions he would have to answer if so. However, Zhong Xian's understanding of the entire system was still far too lacking for him to come up with a feasible solution. In the end, Zhong Xian turned to Yuan Hong and asked, "Elder, I have one request to ask of you." Even though he didn't know what was the position of the old man before him, there should be no mistake addressing him as elder. "What is it?" Yuan Hong frowned. "It's like that." I've examined the passageway and gained some understanding of its workings and sustained damage. However, there are some things which I am not too sure of, so may I borrow some related books on this subject in the blacksmith school to browse through? Since Zhongxian was lacking information, there was only one thing to do: gather sufficient books to form a corresponding Heaven's Path secret manual. This might be extremely abrupt and last minute, but there was nothing more effective than that at the moment. You wish to browse through some books? Yuan Hong was stunned. To only start reading up right now, don't you think it's a little too late? What kind of books do you need? Even though Yuan Hong was a little iffy about Zhongxian's intentions, he still decided to ask anyway. Any books regarding the Chamber of Earthflame will do. The more there is, the better it'll be. Zhongxian replied. The Chamber of Earthflame was an extremely complex system which intricacies could easily take months to comprehend, and yet Zhongxian didn't seem to have the slightest clue on where he should start. A dark line streaked across Yuan Hong's face, but eventually, after a deep breath, he turned to the side and instructed, Luo Yang, bring all of the books regarding the Chamber of Earthflame from our library here. If it was anyone else, he would have never granted him this privilege. However, that fellow before him had Elder Mo's token in hand, and he seemed to have the backing of a formidable teacher as well. Frustrated as he may be, he still decided to hold himself back. And more importantly, he was also curious to see how the other party intended to fixing the Chamber of Earthflame when it was already left in such ruins. He wants to read up. But considering how complex the formation and mechanism is, can he even understand those books? Indeed, I also have no idea what's going on. Perhaps he wants to analyze its internal structure. In any case, the blueprints of the Chamber of Earthflame aren't secrets. The only thing valuable about it is the 4 Earthflame hearts used as the core of the center formation. I heard that the blacksmith school had to pay a hefty price to obtain it back then. As long as those Earthflame hearts remain intact, it shouldn't be too difficult to fix it. After hearing the young man's intentions of reading through books regarding the Chamber of Earthflame, doubt flickered across everyone's faces. While books were useful sources of knowledge, it was impossible to fully grasp such a complex subject without the guidance of a teacher. So far, there had never been a person who had become a great expert of the continent by secluding himself and studying by his own. That fellow had declared confidently that he would attempt to fix the damage, so everyone thought that he would have some level of proficiency in smithing and mechanism design. Who knew that he would end up engaging in last-minute studying instead? If that could really work, everyone would have been 6-star master teachers by now. It was no wonder why Vice School head Yuan Hong was so angry. Ignoring the bizarre gazes around him, Zhongxian waited patiently, and before long, Luo Yang returned back into the room. The books on the Chamber of Earthflame were placed together, so it wasn't too difficult to gather all of them together. After allowing his teacher to double-check the titles, Luo Yang flicked his wrist, and a pile of several hundred books appeared before him. Some of these books depict the structure of the Chamber of Earth Farm, some of them explained the functions of it, and there were even some with several suggestions for improvement on them. However, many of these suggestions were just opinions from the authors, making it difficult to discern right from wrong. Walking up to the book, Zhongxian took a deep breath and touched every single one of them, as if he was trying to find a certain book. Soon, after his finger brushed through every last one of them, he casually picked up a book and flipped it open. His eyes were fixated on the content of the book, but his consciousness was deep within the library of Heaven's Path, compiling the content of the books he had just gathered together. Who? A moment later, a brand new book appeared before him, and Zhongxian swiftly flipped it open. There are still so many flaws. After taking a look, his eyelids began twitching uncontrollably. It seemed like several hundred books were still far from enough. He was still unable to iron out all of the flaws to form a perfect manual. Taking a swift glance, there was actually 52 of them. Nevertheless, his goal wasn't to perfect the manual. More importantly, he just had to find a suitable substitution for the Earthflame hearts. Flipping through the book swiftly, he soon found a portion regarding the Earthflame heart flaw. Earthflame hearts are incompatible with the formation in the Chamber of Flames, resulting in high energy inefficiency. If they could be placed with Earthflame, the efficiency could be enhanced several-fold, and there will be no worry of the depletion of the catalyst as it could be easily retrieved from the ground. However, earth flame is extremely difficult to control, and its heat intensity is lacking as compared to earth flame hearts. The content extended over an entire page. While earth flame was stated as a plausible substitute, it had its own flaws as well, and it wouldn't be easy to make the swap as well. First and foremost, earth flame was lacking in heat intensity, so its effects wouldn't be as pronounced as with earth flame hearts. Considering how the chamber of earth flame was intended as a trial to one's physical resilience to heat, it wouldn't do for the temperature to be lowered. If Zhongxian wanted to use it as a catalyst, he would have to find a way to raise its heat intensity somehow. One method came into his mind: auxiliary formation. One of the books did propose the usage of a 5-star auxiliary formation to further intensify the heat in the chamber of earth flame. Given Zhongxian's current ability, he was more than capable of setting up a 5-star formation. However, there was another potential problem. To set up a 5-star auxiliary formation in the chamber of earth flame, he would have to project it over the original formation. When formations compound with one another, it was extremely easy for them to come into conflict with one another, thus making an explosion extremely likely. As a result, the usage of earth flame as a catalyst for the chamber of earth flame was only practical in theory. In order to ensure stability in both formations, one would have to identify the balance point and establish power equilibrium from that point. However, even the most capable of formation masters in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy didn't possess the means to do so, needless to say, others. This was precisely the reason why the original builders of the Chamber of Earth Flame decided to go to great lengths to obtain Earth Flame hearts to construct it. But while finding the balance point might be a nigh impossible for others, it was no problem for Zhongxian at all. Wasn't it just a mere balance point? Of his formation master capabilities, this seemed to be his greatest specialization. Breaking formations, challenging the sea of formations, calming the cleansing lake. It was through finding the respective balance points that he was able to achieve those feats and make a name for himself. However, I still don't have a complete understanding of the Chamber of Earth Flame yet. It won't be easy for me to find the balance point like that. Nevertheless, 10 high-tier spirit stones are at stake. I should give it a try regardless. Zhongxian nodded. Other than the stability issue, there were still many other problems that Zhongxian had to resolve. For one, Earth Flame was far more deconcentrated than Earth Flame hearts, and this could potentially result in an unstable intensity of heat throughout the Chamber of Earth Flame. It was problematic that Zhongxian didn't have sufficient information to work with in order to construct a perfect formation to resolve all of the problems. However, the main issue at hand should be swapping the Earth Flame hearts with Earth Flame and ensuring the stability of the compounding formation. As long as he could achieve that, he should be able to deal with the other problems slowly after that. Alright, the Earth Flame it shall be then. After running some simulation scenarios in his head, Zhongxian verified that there shouldn't be too much of an issue with it before standing up once more. This elder over here, may I know if there is any way to connect the Chamber of Earth Flame directly to the Earth Flame beneath the ground? Earth Flame? It should be possible to do so. Yuan Hong nodded. Often, our blacksmiths require the immense heat from the earth to refine and mold metal. Thus, we have procured a direct source to it in our blacksmith school. It wasn't uncommon for students of the blacksmith school to have to handle difficult ores, and ordinary coals often produce insufficient heat to process them. As such, a huge formation was crafted within the blacksmith school in order to allow students to tap into the earth flame below directly. That's great. Zhongxian's eyes lit up. I would like to borrow that for a use. May I ask Elder to help connect the source of the earth flame to the formation in the Chamber of Earth Flame? You intend to use earth flame to substitute the earth flame hearts? Yuan Hong frowned. Yes, I have found a feasible solution to do so. Don't worry, I'm certain about its feasibility, Zhongxian said with a confident smile. Alright then. Seeing Zhongxian's confident face, Yuan Hong hesitated for a moment before eventually relenting. While earth flame was indeed dangerous, he had handled it many times in the past while smithing weapons, so controlling it wasn't too much of an issue for him. Given such, he should be able to handle the situation even if things were to go awry, so it shouldn't be dangerous. In any case, since that fellow had declared his confidence, he was also curious to see what he was up to. If this were to succeed, that fellow would be doing what countless predecessors had failed at. This would be, in the truest sense, the breaking of a record. Yuan Hong left the room, returning with a metal formation plate in hand a moment later. After checking the positioning, he placed the formation plate on the ground and injected a surge of zhenqi into it. Wang. The engravings on the formation plate began to shine, and a searing heat permeated the surroundings. Suddenly, a pillar of fire rose from the ground like a flame dragon, seemingly intent on melting down the surroundings. However, the flame dragon was swiftly suppressed and kept under control under Yuan Hong's proficient maneuvers. "Thank you." Zhong Xian smiled. The temperature of the earth flame was indeed subpar compared to the earth flame heart. It seemed like the book was right. He would have to use an auxiliary formation to intensify the heat if he wished to restore the chamber of earth flame back to its previous state. Chapter 736, Goner. Time to begin. Taking a deep breath, Zhong Xian flicked his wrist, and a handful of formation flags appeared in his grasp. There were quite a few 5-star formation flags in Yu Cheng's storage ring that he could use. These formation flags were attributeless, making them ideal to craft the auxiliary formation. Hoo. With a flick of his wrist, several hundred formation flags shot out and fell in the vicinity of the formation plate. Following which, Zhong Xian took a step forward and stomped his foot on the ground. Wang. With a buzz, the formation flags were immediately triggered with a slight tremor. A dense layer of mist emerged in the surroundings, shrouding the formation plate entirely. Hong Long. The flame dragon prowling at the center of the formation plate abruptly grew from a meter tall to dozens of meters, and it seemed as if it would surge beyond the tall ceiling, burning the roof down to cinder. This is a grade 5 formation. How can he set it up so quickly? Yuan Hong's eyebrows leaped up in astonishment. Formation master was one of his supporting occupations as well, but even as a 6-star master teacher, he knew it was impossible for him to set up a formation so swiftly. Yet, the other party was able to do it so easily. Furthermore, he noticed that the method used in setting up the formation was very foreign to him. For even a 6-star master teacher like him to be unaware of it, chances were that the other party had truly received the teachings of a high-ranked master teacher. Legend has it that top-notch formation masters had their unique techniques to swiftly set up formations and enhance the might of it. Most likely, that fellow was using something like that. To intensify the earth flame so swiftly, the formation he is setting up should be an auxiliary formation to increase the pace at which the earth flame is being drawn at. Yuan Hong nodded. Despite Zhong Xian's swift movement, he was still able to roughly tell the gist of the formation through its effects and the positioning of the flags. However, what was the point of setting up this formation? Was that fellow intending on using earth flame to replace the earth flame hearts? But surely that should be unfeasible. Even if the pace at which earth flame is being drawn at were to be enhanced, it will only make the flame dragon grow larger. It has minimal effect on the heat intensity. Yuan Hong frowned. As the vice head of the blacksmith school, he could at least tell that much. While the auxiliary formation would increase in the pace at which earth flame was being drawn out at, that would only lead to a quantitative increase in the flame dragon. To make an analogy, it would be like the difference between burning a kilogram of coal and a ton of coal. Despite the difference in quantity, the difference in the temperature between the two would only be minimal at best. Rest assured, I have a plan in mind. With a light chuckle, Zhong Xian flicked his wrist and took out another set of formation flags. Hualala. With another flick of his hand, the flags were planted at the perimeter of the first formation. Wang. Zhong Xian stomped his foot, and the formation was activated as well. Hoo. As soon as the formation whirred into action, the towering flame dragon instantaneously withered, returning back to its original size of 1 meter. However, despite the reduction in size, the heat it emanated was visibly far more hot than before, and even from a distance, the crowd could still feel a searing heat wave gushing at them. You compressed the flame dragon to forcefully raise the temperature. Not bad. Astonishment flickered across Yuan Hong's face. The first formation increased the rate at which earth flame was drawn at, whereas the second formation aimed to compress the earth flame as far as possible. After undergoing compression, the earth flame might have reduced in size, but it was far more frightening than ever. In an instant, its temperature rose by more than tenfold. Even Yuan Hong didn't have the confidence of withstanding such intense heat. Is he really intending on using the earth flame to substitute the earth flame hearts? Yuan Hong's face twitched. Even though he had a rough idea of what Zhongxian was intending to do earlier, he subconsciously denied the possibility, thinking that it was impossible. However, as Zhongxian continued on, the doubt he harbored earlier intensified. As the two formations continued to operate, the temperature of the earth flame rose higher and higher, and before long, it was already nearing an earth flame heart. Perhaps, this fellow might just be able to fix the chamber of earth flame. However, earth flame was already an unstable material in itself. To extract large amounts of it and compress them together tightly. Was he really able to keep it under control? The moment that he loses control over the earth flame, the entire blacksmith school might potentially be destroyed. Yuan Hong wasn't the only one worried about that. Unsettled frowns were appearing on the many master teachers watching the spectacle as well. How could those who dared to venture to the passageway of records and challenge the achievements of their predecessors be ordinary master teachers? While they were unable to name the two formations Zhongxian had set up, they were still able to comprehend their function and purpose. Watching as more and more earth flame was compacted within the flame dragon, as well as sensing the astounding heat being emanated from it, they couldn't help but feel their goosebumps rising in fear despite their formidable cultivation. If they were to be caught up in an explosion involving it, there was no doubt that they would be burned into cinders. This should be enough. On the other hand, oblivious to the shock rippling through the crowd, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief after successfully setting up the formation. While it may seem like two formations from the outside, it was actually just one formation consisting of an internal layer and an external layer. The internal layer was responsible for drawing more earth flame into the formation, and the external layer would compress the energy to enhance its concentration. When used in unison, it could force earth flame to emulate the effects of the earth flame heart. This was designed by a 6-star pinnacle formation master many years ago for the chamber of earth flame. However, he was unable to resolve the issue regarding the instability of compound formations, so his plan never came to be. Time to start. Knowing that the difficulty would only rise the further he progresses, Zhongxian took in a deep breath and activated his Eye of Insight. With the third acknowledgement of Celestial Master Teacher, his Eye of Insight had been enhanced once again. As long as he was unwilling to reveal it, not even a 6-star Master Teacher would notice his Eye of Insight. Considering how his cultivation was still limited, it would be best for him to conceal his Eye of Insight for the time being until he possesses sufficient strength to protect himself. Despite being concealed from the view of others, the Eye of Insight was still as powerful as ever. With its activation, the ruined formation swiftly appeared before Zhongxian's eyes. The hidden formation flags flickered into existence around the flame dragon. All that's left to do is to activate this formation. The original formation in the chamber of earth flame had only broken down due to the lack of energy to power it. As long as he could activate it through the flame dragon, the chamber of earth flame should function once more. Stepping forward, Zhongxian walked up to the crux of the formation. Activate! Stomping on the ground, Zhongxian infused his zhenqi into the center of the formation, and the formation was activated with a slight trembling of the flags. A mist began to form around the flame dragon. Hualala. However, as soon as the flame dragon came into contact with the mist, a sound of disharmony, reminiscent of something collapsing, abruptly sounded. It was as if the two formations were incompatible with one another, and an explosion would be imminent if they weren't separated immediately. This is bad. Yuan Hong's face paled upon seeing that sight. Formations couldn't be compounded with one another. He had once witnessed a 6-star formation master being blasted to death in an attempt to compound formations. If an explosion were to occur here, the blacksmith school might just be wiped out from the surface of the world. Thus, he immediately stepped forward in preparation to suppress the formation. However, just as he was about to make a move, The young man abruptly shook his hand, and a spirit beast inner core was thrown into the center of the mist. Who? As soon as the inner core came into contact with the mist, the sound of disharmony immediately dispelled. All of a sudden, the formation was stabilized as if it had found its cornerstone. He found the balance point between the two formations? Yuan Hong widened his eyes in shock. To make the rampaging formation calm down so swiftly, there could only be one possibility. That fellow must have found the balance point between the two formations and reinforced it. If I recall correctly, a transcendent mortal 8 Dan Glacianau fish's inner core. Considering its cold attribute, it is indeed an ideal mediator for a fire attribute formation like this. Recalling the details of the spirit beast inner core thrown out earlier, Yuan Hong couldn't help but nod in approval. Not only had the other party found the balance point of the two formations, he even wisely utilized a complementary factor, the cold attribute Glacianau fish inner core, to mediate the flame energy. As the saying goes, no shadow creeps in the absence of light, and no light exists without the presence of shadow. Through a contrasting mediating factor, he successfully stabilized the formation entirely. Compounding a formation to another through a set of well-defined sequence, incredible. To be able to go that far with Earth Flame, this fellow was indeed a true genius. It was no wonder why he declared confidently that he would be able to fix the formation. It seemed like he did possess the capability to back up his words. As long as a balance was established with the formations, the rest could be easily fixed through employing some workers. Seeing the formation being stabilized, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. When he first read about the Chamber of Flames in his book, it was filled with so many flaws that he thought that it would be difficult for him to successfully set it up. To his surprise, everything went smoothly. "I'm done." With a light chuckle, Zhong Xian turned around and reported. "This is the Chamber of Earth Flame? How beautiful. With so many flames flying around the room, can a human really step into it? What an incredible heat. Senior Luo Yang, did you really survive 3 minutes inside? I don't think that I can even last 10 seconds in there before I am reduced to ashes." Looking at the exposed Chamber of Earth Flame, the crowd flew into a commotion. Due to the rumors surrounding the Chamber of Earth Flame, there were very few who had opted to challenge. Thus, many were ignorant about the conditions inside. As the passageway of records hadn't been restored yet, there were no walls to conceal it. As a result, the situation within was plain for everyone to see, and the fearsome heat within left many astounded. Leaping flames and blistering heat. How did the previous record holder even last 17 minutes under such extreme conditions? And did the fellow before them really last 2 hours within? "Elder, I have successfully fixed the Chamber of Earth Flame. I should be spared from compensation now, right?" Ignoring the astonishment of the crowd, Zhong Xian turned to Yuan Hong and asked. "It does seem to be repaired on the surface. However, I'll have to test the effects of the Chamber of Earth Flame personally to verify it." Yuan Hong waved his hands. Even though the Chamber of Earth Flame seemed no different from before, there was still a need to examine its effectiveness, especially given the difference in the catalyst. "Please do." Zhong Xian smiled as he gestured the other party forward. "Yuan. I was once in charge of maintaining the passageway of records, so I have a good idea of how the conditions should be like inside. I'll go in to take a look." Yuan Hong nodded. In his years in the blacksmith school, there was a period of time where he was placed in charge of the amenities of the school. He understood the structure of the Chamber of Earth Flame well, and the best way to verify if it had been restored was to test it out personally. As such, Yuan Hong began making his way into the Chamber of Earth Flame. Wang. As soon as he stepped in, the flames scattered in the area began gathering around him, and the temperature started to rise swiftly. Chem. Noticing that the functioning in the Chamber of Earth Flame was slightly different from what he saw earlier, Zhong Xian frowned. At that instant, a thought suddenly struck him, and he swiftly turned to Luo Yang and asked, "What material did the blacksmith school use to craft the formation plate used to grab Earth Flame from beneath the ground?" "Oh, it's an alloy made of verdant rise rock and furnace crystal," Luo Yang replied after a moment of contemplation. "Verdant rise rock and furnace crystal?" Zhong Xian's eyes widened in shock. Just as he was about to continue speaking, the ground abruptly shook. Hong long. With loud rumblings, a massive surge of heat wave abruptly rose from the ground, resulting in a pandemonium. Following which, the passageway of records collapsed, followed by the Blacksmith Guild's main hall. Chapter 737. Consulting the school head Hualala. Dust rose rapidly from the ground. The master teachers who had been spectating the sight abruptly backed away in fear. Peng 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 peng. Consecutive collisions sounded as dozens of master teachers were slammed violently against a wall. Quickly stabilizing his posture, Zhongxian gazed at the sight before him, and his lips began to twitch. Not only had the passageway of records collapsed entirely, half of the Blacksmith Guild's main hall had also collapsed, leaving behind a cloak of dust in the wake of its former glory. The entire area screamed of a disaster, as if it had been bombarded. If Zhongxian's action of collapsing the chamber of earth flame had sent everyone into a frenzy a moment ago, this was at least 10 times worse. The passageway of records and its mechanisms and formations along with half of the main hall had been completely wrecked. Even if it is fixed eventually, the blacksmith school would still become a laughingstock for the entire Master Teacher Academy. There was probably no one who would have thought that a mere record challenger would end up reducing the entire branch into such a state. It was fortunate that most of the master teachers in the Blacksmith Guild possessed incredible cultivation. Protected by their zhunqi, they sustained minimal injuries, but considering how a chamber of earth flame was worth 20 high-tier spirit stones, how much will all of this cost? Zhongxian's lips twitched as he saw the sight before him slowly turning dark. At this point, he was already on the verge of tears. There was nothing wrong with the earth flame which he had tempered to replace the earth flame heart, and the formation had been reinforced to be extremely stable as well. It should be impossible for anything to go wrong, but something still did. The mistake lay in the formation plate used to draw earth flame from the ground. The verdant rise rock and furnace crystal were valuable ores, but they were susceptible to heat under extreme conditions. Typically speaking, those ores should be able to endure the heat from earth flame, but there was one thing Zhongxian had neglected. The formation in the chamber of earth flame was crafted in the manner such that it would emit varying degrees of heat depending on the cultivation of the person who stepped in. When Yuan Hong stepped into the formation, the temperature began rising swiftly, eventually exceeding the melting points of those ores. Naturally, it began to lose its shape. This was similar to delivery trucks from his previous life. If one were to follow the weight limit, it could last for a very long time. However, if one were to overload it, it could be damaged very easily. If that formation plate to retrieve earth flame from the ground was crafted of better materials, this wouldn't be a problem. However, that wasn't the case. As the formation plate began to melt, the stability which Zhongxian had created with great difficulty was shaken, resulting in the violent earth flame running amok. As a result, a calamity occurred. In other words, if it wasn't Yuan Hong who entered, such a problem would have never occurred. It was due to the formation plate being too weak and Yuan Hong being too strong that such an accident happened. This was something Zhongxian hadn't expected to happen. Even the elder who had come up with this solution probably couldn't have imagined that the complex compound formation he came up with would fall apart due to inferior quality material. This isn't my fault. With a tearful face, Zhongxian's lips twitched uncontrollably. While that was what Zhongxian believed, the others didn't share his thoughts. As the shaking ground calmed, Luo Yang and the others stood up and glanced at the ruins around them before turning to him. Their eyes were filled with so much fury that it seemed as if they would devour him alive. This was the core of their blacksmith school. How were they supposed to smith weapons now that it had been reduced to ruins? How could they raise their heads proudly before the other schools? What did you do? Luo Yang spat through clenched teeth. At this moment, he felt so angry that his hands were dying to rip the fellow before him apart. In the end, he still chose to suppress his anger, and turning to the side, he instructed, "You two, keep a close eye on him, don't let him escape. As for the rest, follow me. We'll go and save my teacher." This wasn't the time to deal with that fellow yet. His teacher's safety was the current priority. Yes. Two master teachers stepped forward and stood by Zhongxian's flanks, sealing his path of escape. On the other hand, the others swiftly rushed to the ruins of where the Chamber of Earth Flame once stood. The explosion had caused the entire passageway of records and the branch to collapse. Considering how Vice School head Yuan had been standing at the center of the explosion, he was probably in a worse state than everyone else. But just as they were about to start digging through the ruins, Huala, a figure, suddenly emerged amidst the dust. Yuan Hong. At this very moment, a huge portion of his hair had been burnt away. His face was livid, and flames of rage were burning in his eyes, and it seemed as if he was on the verge of going on a rampage. Cough, cough. As soon as Yuan Hong rose from the dust, he began coughing violently, and fresh blood spewed from his mouth. His body wobbled feebly. Teacher. Vice School head Yuan. Everyone immediately rushed up to him in worry. The person before them was a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, a Saint Realm expert. How wounded must he be to be in such a state? I'm fine. Yuan Hong waved his hands as a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. Where's that fellow? Had he not used his full strength to suppress the explosion, perhaps half of the entire blacksmith school might have been reduced to ashes by now. Didn't you declare confidently that there wouldn't be any problems? Didn't you reassure me time and time again that it would be fine? Tell me, what is this then? Why was I so foolish as to listen to your lies? The more he thought about it, the more furious Yuan Hong felt. He's over there. Luo Yang pointed to the side, only to see the young man walking over under the escort of the other 2 master teachers. Who in the world are you? What do you intend to do here? Yuan Hong roared furiously. He was beginning to suspect that the fellow might have been sent by the other schools to wreak havoc here. Otherwise, how could a simple record challenge cause such a huge stir? Wasn't the very notion of it inconceivable? All I wanted was to take the 5-star blacksmith examination. Zhong Xian sighed. His goal was that simple, but who could have thought that he would require academic credits for even that? Left with no choice, he could only seek a way to earn some. He thought that it should be a walk in a park, but in the end, not only did he fail to earn his academic credits, he even got himself in such a huge mess. Take the 5-star blacksmith examination? You call this taking the 5-star blacksmith examination? Admit it, you're here to tear down our school, Yuan Hong said as he gritted his teeth furiously. When other students take the examination, we earn academic credits and money, but when it comes to you, are you sure you aren't trying to slaughter us all? If not for my swift reaction and high cultivation, I would have died in there. Have you ever seen anyone who tore down a guild while trying to take an examination? I really didn't do it intentionally. How about this? I'm willing to compensate for this. Zhong Xian's face reddened. While everything that had happened felt like a cruel prank from the heavens, the issue still ultimately originated from him, so he had to carry the responsibility for everything that had happened. The only thing he could do now was to offer compensation. Compensate? What are you going to compensate us with? Can you even afford to compensate us? Yuan Hong was so angry that his body began shaking in fury. Gathered in the passageway of records is the achievements of countless predecessors before them. How are you going to compensate for that? Besides, you can't even fork out 10 high-tier spirit stones. What can you offer us? Even if we were to sell you, we won't be able to earn that much. Why don't you tell me, how much spirit stones do I need to compensate? I'll try my best to earn that sum and repay it to you. Zhong Xian said through clenched jaws. At the very most, he would just have to do more part-time work and have Yangsha appear to treat patients and offer guidance. In any case, he would repay this debt. While he couldn't be entirely blamed for this incident, it wouldn't be fair to the other party if he were to try to shrug off responsibility. Thus, he could only clench his jaws and shoulder it. Repay? Yuan Hong sneered. You sure know how to talk. As a mere 4-star master teacher, even if you were to work your life away, you won't be able to repay this. Do you know how much damage have you caused? With a sharp glint in his eyes, Yuan Hong bellowed. There are a total of 37 challenges in the passageway of records, each of them containing the blood, sweat, and tears of countless predecessors, as well as innumerable precious artifacts and ores that couldn't be bought with money. Furthermore, adding in half of the guild branch into the mix, even 3,000 high-tier spirit stones wouldn't be enough. Given so, you still dare to talk about compensation. Tell me, how do you intend to compensate? Blacksmith was an extremely money-consuming occupation. Amenities required for smithing wasn't cheap, especially for advanced facilities to process high-grade ores. It wouldn't be a joke to say that every inch of the Blacksmith Guild was worth gold. To cause such immense damage to the Blacksmith Guild, even a 7-star low-tier master teacher would find it hard to compensate all of this. Needless to say, 3,000 high-tier spirit stones? Zhong Xian's body wobbled weakly. He only had a high-tier spirit stone in possession at the moment. Even if he were to sell all of his possessions, he would only have at most 10. 3,000. How could he possibly afford such a sum? Even if he were to disguise as Yang Shuo, he wouldn't be able to earn so much within a short period of time. What are the other record challenges here? Why don't I try fixing them? Zhong Xian asked. Since he couldn't possibly fork the bill, he could only offer to help fix as much as he could to lower his debt. Yuan Hong nearly died of anger after hearing those words. That fellow arrogantly promised that he would be able to fix the chamber of earth flame, but what happened afterward? From the collapse of a single chamber, the destruction extended to half of the entire branch. Furthermore, the damages increased by 10 high-tier spirit stones to 3,000. That was an increase of 300 folds. He thought that the other party should at least comprehend what kind of situation he was in and take a humbler attitude, but to think that he was so brazen as to continue shooting his mouth here. Repair your head. If I were to allow you to continue acting as you please, the blacksmith school or perhaps even the entire Master Teacher Academy would be destroyed by you. Furthermore, the passageway of records wasn't something that a blacksmith could fix by his own. There were also many mechanisms involved, so the expertise of a celestial designer was required as well. No matter how skilled you are at smithing, you won't be able to fix them on your own as long as you are ignorant of mechanical engineering. If it requires expertise on mechanical engineering as well, I can go and take the celestial designer examination first. Perhaps realizing what Yuan Hong was thinking of, Zhong Xian quickly added. Yuan Hong's body shook feebly once more. Aren't you getting more and more arrogant? Take the celestial designer examination first. Do you think that the examination will be so easy that you can pass it as and when you like? Keep a close eye on this lad. With his cheeks crimson with rage, Yuan Hong felt that he might die from anger if he were to continue speaking with the other party. Thus, he waved his hands and turned his head away. Yes. Luo Yang and the others hurriedly nodded. I'll go and consult the school head on this matter. In the meantime, make sure that he doesn't get away. Yuan Hong instructed. The current situation was already beyond his control. He had to report it to the school head. The school head would then decide on what to do with this fellow. Yes, the crowd answered. Vice School Head Yuan, the school head asks for you to go to his office as soon as possible. At that moment, a master teacher suddenly rushed into the room anxiously and reported. He wants me to go to his office. Yuan Hong was taken aback. Could he be aware of what is going on here? While there was a huge commotion here, considering the immense size of the blacksmith school, and the far distance between the school head's office and here, the school head shouldn't have received the news yet. But if that wasn't the case, why would the latter be asking for him? Chapter 738, Golden Armored Cloak. But regardless, since the school head was looking for him, he mustn't keep him waiting. After instructing Luo Yang and the others once more to not allow Zhong Xian to get away at any cost, he followed the master teacher to the school head's office. The blacksmith school was extremely large, taking up more than several 10,000 mu of land. It was divided into the smithery, staff office, learning hall, and various examination facilities. 10,000 mu equals 6,666,666 m squared. Yuan Hong was in charge of the examination facilities, which was at the opposite end of the staff office. Even so, with his incredible speed as a Saint Realm expert, it didn't take him long to arrive before the school head's office. Stepping into the office, he saw the school head and the other 3 vice school heads seated within, seemingly discussing something vital. Head of the blacksmith school, Zhao Bingshu, one of the 10 great master teachers, Of the entire Master-Teacher Academy, his standing was second to only the head of the apothecary school. Seated upright at the end of the room, he carried a dignified and authoritative aura. At this moment, the school head's eyebrows were knitted together, and the other 3 vice school heads had austere expressions on their faces as well. "School head, you were looking for me?" Yuan Hong asked doubtfully as he headed towards an empty seat amidst the group. "You arrived at a timely moment. There's something which I need your input on," the school head nodded as he flicked his palm. Voila! A formation in the room was activated, creating a barrier between those in the room and the rest of the world. With the activation of this barrier, it would be impossible for anyone outside to listen to the conversation within the room. Of course, this also meant that news outside wouldn't be able to reach this room either as long as the formation was active. Seeing the school head going to the extent of even activating a formation to ensure perfect confidentiality, Yuan Hong was bewildered. "Since everyone has arrived, I'll start then." School head Zhao Bingshu nodded with a grim expression. "Just a moment ago, Elder Mo and Pavilion Master Mo have gathered the 10 great master teachers together and announced something vital." Yuan Hong's face twisted in astonishment. It must be a grave matter for Pavilion Master Mo and Elder Mo to have to gather the 10 great master teachers together to confer about it. Could it be news about the old principal? One of the vice school heads couldn't help but ask. The most crucial issue the Master Teacher Academy was facing at the moment was the old principal going missing, resulting in the lack of a leader to unite the academy together. It would be great if there was news on him. That's not it. Zhao Bingshu shook his head gravely. The otherworldly demonic tribe has been appeared in the vicinity of Hongyuan City. Otherworldly demonic tribe. Yuan Hong's body instantaneously tensed up. As a 6-star pinnacle master teacher, he understood the significance of an appearance of the otherworldly demonic tribe. But for the school head to activate a formation of confidentiality, the matter probably wasn't as simple as a mere appearance of the otherworldly demonic tribe. That's right. Senior Byzantium Alios has come under their assault on Leiyuan Peak, and we are still unable to verify whether he's dead or alive at the moment. Zhao Bingshu said slowly. The 4 men gathered here were the vice heads of the blacksmith school, important pillars supporting humanity. They were trustworthy men whom he could entrust such crucial intelligence to. Senior Byzantium Alios has gone missing? Yuan Hong and the others widened their eyes in astonishment. They could hardly believe what they were hearing. If that was truly the case, the situation must be truly dire. Byzantium Alios' beast was the old principal's tamed beast, and his cultivation had long reached Saint Wundan pinnacle. On top of that, as a saint beast, he commanded strength far beyond any of them here. If even he had fallen prey to the otherworldly demons, how powerful must their enemies be? Senior Byzantium Alios went missing even before he could even send a message to us. Furthermore, based on the marks of battle left on Leiyuan Peak, there must be at least 10 saints among the otherworldly demons, and one of them was at least Saint Tu Dan at minimum. Zhao Bingshu said grimly. The reason why he rushed here to inform the other vice school heads on this matter right after the conference was to have the blacksmith school act immediately. If they were to delay on this matter, they might just miss the ideal window to save Byzantium Alios' beast. At least 10 Saint Realm otherworldly demons. One of them is at least Saint Tu Dan? Everyone trembled upon learning that news. If that was really the case, this matter would be far beyond their ability. Should we report this matter to the headquarters? Yuan Hong asked. With the appearance of so many otherworldly demons simultaneously, the Master Teacher Academy might just find itself overpowered. Given such, it might be preferable to have the headquarters send down stronger master teachers to deal with this issue. Mu Shi from the headquarters has already arrived at the academy, and we have reported this matter to him as well. His view was to have us deal with this matter as far as we can, and if anyone succeeds in saving Senior Byzantium Alios, he would become the next principal of the academy. Zhao Bingshu replied. The next principal? Everyone's eyes immediately lit up. If Zhao Bingshu could become the academy's new principal, the standing of the blacksmith school in the academy would surely soar as well. It would only be a matter of time before it overtakes the apothecary school as the first school in the academy. UN The reason why I have all of you gathered here is to have you investigate the whereabouts of Senior Byzantium Alios. Our blacksmith school must find him before the others. Zhao Bingshu nodded, revealing his intentions. That's no problem at all. School head, rest assured. We'll do our best. Hong Yuan and the others nodded. This wasn't just a matter regarding Zhao Bingshu's promotion. The appearance of the otherworldly demons would be a threat to the entire Master Teacher Academy and even humanity as a whole. Even without the incentive of the principal's seat, they were still obligated to do so. Good, that's all for now. Return and make whatever necessary arrangement. Zhao Bingshu nodded. School head, there's a matter I need to report. Seeing the school head dismissing them, one of the vice school heads immediately stood up and said, I also have a matter to report. Yuan Hong also hurriedly said. Vice school head Xiong, you'll go first. Seeing that the two vice school heads had matters to report, Zhao Bingshu nodded. Vice school head Xiong Bing was in charge of the learning hall, and he had the closest relationship with the students as well. All right. Xiong Bing nodded. It's like that. A while back, a student reported finding traces left behind by Elder Wu Yangzi, and she requested to initiate a mission on it. Such matters often occur, so I didn't think too much of it either. So, I offered them a few academic credits as the reward and sent them on their way. Wu Yangzi was the most talented blacksmith in the past 10,000 years of history of Hongyuan Empire, and many students viewed him as their idol. As a result, there were many students who would approach him with news they had gathered on Wu Yangzi and apply for a mission each year, but most of them would turn out to just be mere rumors. Could it be they succeeded? Hearing Xiong Bing abruptly raising this matter, a thought flashed across Yuan Hong's head, and his breathing began to hasten in agitation. If this was true, it would cause a huge uproar in the blacksmith school. Even though it had been long since Wu Yangzi had passed away, he still commanded great prestige amongst the blacksmiths in Hongyuan City. It's still a little too early for me to verify whether it's true or not, but the one who reported the completion of the mission is the sixth princess. Xiong Bing said. Sixth princess? You mean Princess Yu Feiya? Zhao Bingshu asked. Yu Feiya was a member of royalty, so even as one of the 10 great master teachers, he had also heard about her. That's right. Not only so, there is grade 2's Luo Chichi and Xing Yuan from the Xing clan. Xiong Bing continued. I have heard of Luo Chichi. She's a famous blacksmith genius in grade 2. If we could groom her well, she would surely achieve great things in the future. As for Xing Yuan, is he that old fellow's offspring? Zhao Bingshu asked. He is. Xiong Bing nodded. Why would they suddenly go searching for Elder Wu Yangzi's whereabouts? Yuan Hong asked in bewilderment. Each year, there were many students who would attempt to search for Wu Yangzi's whereabouts to uncover the truth behind his disappearance, but often, the news they gathered turned out to just be rumors amongst the populace. As the top students of their grade, surely they should know better than to pursue groundless rumors? I am not too sure on that, but just today, they came to me and reported the completion of their mission. On top of that, they brought Elder Wu Yangzi's remains back. Due to the immense significance of this issue, I dare not pass judgment by myself. Thus, I hope that the rest of you can help me verify the authenticity of this issue as well. Xiong Bing said gravely. Sure, we'll be more than willing to. Where are those students? Zhao Bingshu said. Everyone was taken aback to hear that the group had brought back Wu Yangzi's remains. Missions relating to searching for Wu Yangzi's whereabouts had always ended in a failure, but this group claimed to have found his body. If that was true, this would truly be a huge matter. While Zhao Bingshu was a 6-star pinnacle blacksmith as well, his skill was still terribly lacking as compared to Wu Yangzi. If the group had brought back any secret manuals left behind by Wu Yangzi along with them, the blacksmith school could be revolutionized. They are currently waiting outside the room. I'll call them in now, Xiong Bing hurriedly said. All right. Zhao Bingshu nodded. Xiong Bing stepped out of the room, and a moment later, he returned with 3 students following behind him. They were Xing Yuan, Luo Chichi, and Yu Feiya. While Xing Yuan and Yi Qian had left Huanyu Empire earlier than Luo Chichi and Yu Feiya, the speed of the aerial spirit beast they took was far beneath that of the great violet wing beast. As a result, Yu Fei and Luo Chichi ended up arriving earlier than them. As a result, it took them so long to gather together to report on the matter. Xing Yuan, Luo Chichi, Yu Fei, pays respect to school head Zhao and the other vice school head. The group clasped their fists and greeted. Spare with the ceremony. Zhao Bingshu stroked his beard as his gaze fell on the group of three. I heard that you found Elder Wu Yang's remains. Is that true? That's true. This is the reason why we're here. Xing Yuan nodded affirmatively. I beseech school head Zhao to verify the authenticity of the remains. With those words, he flicked his wrist, and a corpse appeared before the crowd. It was the body which they had found in the underground chamber. This. Upon seeing the corpse, Zhao Bingshu, Yuan Hong, and the others traded gazes, and their eyes narrowed. As one of the top blacksmiths in Hongyuan City back in his time, there were many paintings on him, and they were passed down through the generations. The few of them had seen those paintings as well, and while the corpse before them was slightly withered, they were astonished to see that the distinctive features were identical to the painting depiction. In other words, there was a good chance that the corpse before them belonged to Elder Wu Yangzi. Could they have really accomplished what countless before them had failed to do? Elder Wu Yangzi has once smithed a golden armored cloak, which, unlike ordinary armor, could be concealed beneath one's skin. If this corpse has the golden armored cloak beneath his skin, there will be no doubt that is indeed Elder Wu Yangzi. Zhao Bingshu stood up and observed the corpse carefully. Golden armored cloak. Yuan Hong and the others were taken aback. They had never heard of this before. That's right. Zhao Bingshu nodded as he gathered a surge of sword qi on his fingertip and lightly sliced the corpse's skin. Sila. A small incision was made on the corpse's skin, revealing a gleaming golden armor within. This is indeed the golden armored cloak. There's no doubt about it, this is the remains of Elder Wu Yangzi. Upon seeing the yellow shine beneath the corpse's skin, Zhao Bingshu clenched his fists tightly in agitation, and his breathing hastened. A corpse could be faked, but it was impossible for the golden armored cloak to be faked. This was because its forging method had already long disappeared from the face of the earth. There was only one possibility given that the corpse before him was wearing it, he must be Wu Yangzi. Chapter 739. His name is Zhongxian, it's true? That's great. Upon hearing school head Zhao's confirmation on the matter, the faces of Yuan Hong and the others flushed crimson in agitation. As six-star pinnacle blacksmiths, they understood the significance of the words Wu Yangzi to Hongyuan Empire. Back then, when this esteemed elder disappeared without a trace, a huge turmoil broke out in the blacksmith guild. Countless men stepped forth to lead the search for his whereabouts, but their efforts ended in futility. Who could have thought that the ones who would eventually uncover his traces would be the students of the Master Teacher Academy? They could already foresee the huge commotion that would occur with the announcement regarding the discovery of this corpse. This would boost the blacksmith school's prestige amongst the students and blacksmiths. You have done well. I'll have the school reward you handsomely for your accomplishment. Zhao Bingshu nodded in commendation as he gazed at the students before him, proud of them. To be honest, he had also attempted to uncover Elder Wu Yang's trails when he was younger, but he eventually found himself stumbling upon a dead end, leaving him no choice but to give up. Thank you, school head Zhao. Xing Yuan and the others clasped their fists. Vice school head Xiong Bing had thought that it would be difficult for them to succeed when they first applied for the mission, so he didn't bother offering much of a reward. However, with such great achievement, locating Wu Yang's whereabouts and finding his remains, it was natural that the reward should be increased significantly. Since you have found Elder Wu Yang's body, regarding his heritage. One of the vice school heads couldn't help but ask anxiously. Back then, when the esteemed Wu Yangzi disappeared from the world, he didn't leave behind his heritage. This was also part of the reason why after his disappearance, many had searched far and wide for his whereabouts, in hopes of uncovering his heritage. Since these students were able to find his remains, could they have obtained his heritage as well? Given their current capability, Wu Yang's heritage was no longer crucial to them. They also wouldn't stoop so low as to steal the heritage from the students either, especially given their standing. However, If the blacksmith school could obtain Wu Yang's heritage, it would definitely allow many of their blacksmiths to advance their smithing proficiency. This was beneficial to the entire blacksmith school. We managed to find his heritage. At the same time, I was also accepted as Elder Wu Yang's direct disciple. However, I won't be able to make the call to contribute the heritage to the school by myself. The one who spoke this time around was Luo Chichi. You found Elder Wu Yang's heritage? You can't make the call yourself? True, your group did go through a lot of effort to obtain the heritage. You should indeed discuss among yourselves before coming to a decision. Don't worry, if you don't wish to make it public, I promise that no one will be able to make things difficult for you. The Master-Teacher Pavilion has its own rules. There will be no one who would risk bringing the ire of the Master-Teacher Pavilion upon themselves for a heritage. Upon hearing that the group had obtained the heritage, everyone was astonished. But soon, they nodded in agreement. The responsibility of master-teachers was to impart knowledge and enlighten the masses. But as noble as their mission was, they were still mortal, and they had their own desires and interests. It would be unreasonable to expect them to impart everything they knew selflessly to others. It was precisely for this reason that there was a classification between direct disciple, normal students, and listening in. Those who were listening in would only be imparted the bare fundamentals, whereas the direct disciples would be taught the most profound of techniques. This was also the reason why the standing of direct disciples was higher than those listening in, with the latter having to address the former as senior. Since Luo Chichi had become Wu Yang's direct disciple and inherited his heritage, it should belong to her. If she was willing to pass it on, that would be goodwill on her part. However, if she was unwilling to do so, they weren't in a position to say anything either. This was the magnanimity that master teachers should have. Otherwise, how could they be qualified to enlighten the masses? Rather than saying our group went through a lot of effort, it would be more accurate to say that that person went through a lot of effort. As long as he agrees, I believe that Chichi will be more than willing to contribute the heritage to the blacksmith school. Realizing that there was some misunderstanding between them, Yu Fei quickly stepped forward to explain. That person? Zhao Bingshu, Yuan Hong, and the others glanced at one another doubtfully. Indeed. Not only was that person the one who helped us obtain the heritage, he even saved all of us. If not for him, we might have died within the underground chamber. Gratitude gleamed in Luo Chichi's eyes as she spoke. We can forego the rewards that school head Zhao has promised us as long as he is amply rewarded, Xing Yuan added. Even though he was frustrated by the complicated relationship between Princess Yu Fei and that fellow, he still felt obliged to repay the other party for saving their lives. Sensing the earnest tone behind the duo's words, Zhao Bingshu frowned. What happened? Did you encounter some kind of danger while seeking Elder Wu Yangzi? Wu Yang's disappearance back then was extremely abrupt. There was no signs or marks left behind, as if he had vanished into thin air. Even Zhao Bingshu, despite his immense authority, could only fathom a guess on the happenings, deducing that the otherworldly demons might have been involved in this matter. But as for the truth, there was no one who could say for sure. Furthermore, after such a long time had passed, whatever existing danger back then should have already dissipated. Dangerous can't possibly summarize what we went through. Elder Wu Yangzi was captured by the otherworldly demons back then, and here is a personal note he left behind. Luo Chichi nodded as she passed a book over. This was the notebook which they obtained from Wu Yangzi back in the underground chamber. Written on it was the happenings in his capture and his experiences with the otherworldly demons in the underground chamber. This. After reading through the note, Zhao Bingshu's eyes narrowed. Otherworldly demon puppet? Could it be that you have met those in the underground chamber? Indeed. Due to a moment of carelessness, we ended up being surrounded, and we were almost killed. Despite the danger, that person stepped forward and saved us. Furthermore, in order to destroy those puppets, he even destroyed the underground chamber, burying himself with them. Luo Chichi recounted the affairs that happened that day. Upon hearing about how that person stood bravely against an otherworldly demon puppet to save Luo Chichi, everyone fell silent. They tried putting themselves in the other party's shoes, but they realized that it would be difficult for them to put themselves in danger in order to save a mere acquaintance. Furthermore, that person even handed the heritage over to Luo Chichi without even taking a glance at it. Very few would be willing to do so if put in his position. There was no blacksmith who could remain unmoved before Wu Yang's heritage, and yet, that person willingly gave the opportunity to Luo Chichi. It would be hard to find anyone as noble as he was. As the 5 school head and vice school heads listened to how that person braved through many Saint Realm otherworldly demon puppets without regard for his life in order to save Yu Feiya and the others, their mouths opened wide in astonishment. If those otherworldly demon puppets were to escape from the underground chamber, they would pose a fatal threat to Huanyu Empire and perhaps even Hongyuan Empire. Many will suffer under their tyranny. His actions have saved all of us. He's truly a noble person. Indeed. Putting his life on the line, he attracted all of the otherworldly demon puppets away and collapsed the underground chamber so as to stop them. Putting the lives of others above his, he's indeed a true master teacher. A long moment later, Zhao Bingshu and the others finally spoke up, nodding in admiration and awe for the other party. To charge into a despairing situation for humanity, there was nothing greater than that. Unwittingly, they thought of Kongsha. Back then, Kongsha had established the master-teacher occupation for the advancement of mankind. After tens of thousand years, the otherworldly demonic tribe had long disappeared. While the master-teacher pavilion had managed to remain true to its aims, the number hot-blooded master-teachers who were willing to truly put their life on the line for humanity had been decreasing over the years, perhaps even disappearing entirely. Who would have known that they would find one right in their master-teacher academy? He's really a respectable master teacher. Xing Yuan nodded. He was the one who helped me obtain this heritage. As long as he gives his consent, I'll contribute it to the blacksmith school without any hesitation, Luo Chichi said. It was through Zhongsha's blood and sweat that they obtained Wu Yang's heritage. If he agrees to it, she would hand it over straight away. Otherwise, even at the risk of her life, she wouldn't divulge a single word about it. Judging from how noble that person you spoke of is, I'm sure he'll be more than willing to contribute this valuable knowledge to the masses. Yuan Hong remarked. I'm sure he will. He's such a person after all. After a moment of thought, Luo Chichi nodded. Her apothecary teacher might be young, but he wasn't one who was obsessed with gains and losses. Even if she were to seek his permission for this matter, he would surely give his consent without any hesitation. I'll contribute Wu Yang's heritage to the blacksmith school then. However, I hope that the school can reward him for his effort. With those words, Luo Chichi flicked her wrist and took out a book. It was the secret manual which many would go into a frenzy in order to obtain it, Wu Yang's personal smithing technique, zither forging technique. This. Flipping through the book casually, Zhao Bingshu could tell that it was authentic instantly, and his eyes reddened in agitation. The various interpretations and comprehension of smithing in the manual were refreshing and novel. If this could be imparted to the students of the blacksmith school, their smithing proficiency would definitely be raised by leaps and bounds. Even Zhao Bingshu himself might be able to surpass his bottleneck and reach higher realms in his smithing with this. That person is indeed a great man. He has contributed greatly to humanity. Where is that person now? Is he still alive? Zhao Bingshu asked hesitantly. Luo Chichi had only said that that person chose to willingly remain in the underground chamber in order to save them, not mentioning whether he had survived that ordeal or not. If that person was still alive, the blacksmith school would have to reward him handsomely for his immense contributions. If he had already passed away, they would ensure that his family members are well taken of so as to honor his deeds. He's alive, of course he's alive. Not expecting for there to be such a misunderstanding, Luo Chichi hurriedly clarified. Not only is he alive, he has also participated in the entrance examination, and he should be a freshman in the academy now. They hadn't heard from Zhongxian whether he had passed the entrance examination or not, but given his capability, it shouldn't pose a problem to him at all. Freshman? You mean to say that that person who saved you is a freshman of our academy? Zhao Bingshu was stunned. The other vice school heads were also dumbstruck by that revelation. When they heard that that person had selflessly put his life at stake to save them, they had thought that he would be a 5-star master teacher a minimum, or perhaps even beyond that. Who could have thought that it would be a humble freshman in their academy? That's right. Luo Chichi nodded. I see. What is his name then? I'll send someone to find him and convince him to join our blacksmith school, Yuan Hong said. Putting everything aside, just by the fact that he had contributed the zither forging technique to the blacksmith school would earn him the respect of countless students here. He's my apothecary teacher. His name is Zhong Xian, Luo Chichi announced proudly. Zhong Xian? Yuan Hong froze for an instant as his body trembled to that familiar his name. With a shaky voice, he asked, Is that Zhong Xian you spoke, a young man in his 20s, around this tall, and has a fair complexion? Chapter 740. Meritorious. Upon hearing Vice School Head Yuan's words, Luo Chichi pondered for a moment before nodding. Teacher is indeed in his 20s, and he does have fair complexion. After cultivating the quintuple incandescence golden body, his body became as smooth and flawless as an infant. It wouldn't be inaccurate to describe him as possessing fair complexion. Zhong Xian, a freshman, and in his 20s. Yuan Hong felt frenzied. The person who had just caused immense destruction in the blacksmith guild also went by the same name, and the description fits to a T as well. What's wrong, Vice School Head Yuan? Seeing Yuan Hong going into a daze after asking that question, Zhao Bingshu couldn't help but ask doubtfully. Could it be that you know Zhongshe? Yuan Hong had no idea how he should answer that question. Still in disbelief, he turned to Luo Chichi and asked once again, Does Zhongshe has a formidable teacher who is a master teacher beyond 6-star? Are you referring to Yangshe? I'm not too sure about the details, but it does seem like he possesses means beyond a normal 6-star master teacher. Luo Chichi nodded. Yangshe. Yang Xian. Yuan Hong's body shook intensely. There was no need to ask any further. There was overwhelming evidence to say that the two people described were the same person. That fellow had reported himself as Yang Xian's student. He was also a freshman in his 20s, and the names were similar too. No matter how you look at it, they were definitely the same person. What the heck was this? As soon as he arrived at the academy, the first thing he did was to destroy the Chamber of Earth Flame before reducing the entire passageway of records to ruins, leaving the Blacksmith Guild in tatters. He thought that he might be a student sent from the other schools to wreak havoc in the blacksmith school, but who could have thought that he had such a background? Putting his life on the line to face the otherworldly demons alone, giving away Wu Yang's heritage without any hesitation. Every single one of these deeds was incredibly noble, leaving those who have heard of them with nothing but awe for him. A conceited god of destruction and a selfless master teacher. How could they possibly be the same person? Was he suffering from dissociative identity disorder? What's wrong? Seeing Yuan Hong's face slowly being reduced to tears, Zhao Bingshu asked once more. As a 6-star master teacher, Yuan Hong should have at least reached a level where he could conceal his emotions. Why would he still show such a depressed expression? It's like this. Didn't I just said that I had something I needed to report to you? Hearing school head Zhao's question, Yuan Hong swiftly recovered and clasped his fist. Zhao Bingshu nodded. What is it? Previously, right after Vice School Head Xiong spoke, Yuan Hong did say that he had something to report as well. That is, the passageway of records has collapsed, and half of the Blacksmith Guild has been destroyed. Yuan Hong's face reddened in embarrassment. Despite being the person in charge of the examination facilities in the blacksmith school, the area under his jurisdiction ended up being destroyed by a record challenger. He would probably become a laughingstock for the other Vice School heads. The passageway of records and half of the Blacksmith Guild has been destroyed. Is there an attack by the otherworldly demons? Zhao Bingshu's eyebrows shot up in alarm. As they had been busy discussing inside the office, and communication with the external world had been terminated, they hadn't received news about the matter yet. However, the passageway of records was constructed and reinforced with incredibly resilient materials, allowing it to withstand the trial of time over several millenniums. Unless there was an invasion by the otherworldly demons, how could it collapse all of the sudden? That's not it. Not expecting school head Zhao to actually make such a connection, Yuan Hong hurriedly clarified it awkwardly. Someone came to challenge the chamber of earth flame. Yuan Hong swiftly went through the happenings of the incident. You are saying that someone survived in the chamber of earth flame for over 2 hours? And when he finally came out, the chamber collapsed, and the earth flame hearts were completely depleted. On top of that, he used earth flame to substitute as a catalyst for the earth flame hearts and successfully repaired the chamber. However, as soon as you stepped in, it exploded. After hearing Yuan Hong's recount, the other vice school heads stared at him as if they had seen a ghost. To survive the blistering heat in the chamber of earth flame for 2 hours straight, and even recreating it with earth flame. Are you for real? Was that even something a 4-star master teacher was capable of? One must know that even they, as 6-star master teachers, were incapable of doing the same. Yes. Yuan Hong nodded. The person who caused the commotion also goes by the name of Zhong Xian, and he's a freshman as well. His name is Zhong Xian. Could they be the same person? To be able to save his peers from the otherworldly demon puppets and destroy the underground chamber to trap them down there, Zhongsha possessed both courage and wits. Only someone like him could possess such great capability, the other vice school heads remarked. If someone had told them that a person had endured 2 hours in the chamber of earth flame and destroyed half of the blacksmith guild, they would have never believed it. However, after hearing about the incredible exploits of Zhongsha, these feats seemed to be nothing much in comparison. The chamber of earth flame serves to test the resilience of one's physical body. The longer one can remain in there, the stronger one's physical body is deemed to be. If the both Zhongsha are the same person, considering that he had inherited Elder Wu Yang's heritage and cultivated the quintuple incandescence golden body, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to last 2 hours inside. Zhao Bingshu nodded. His first thought upon hearing that someone had lasted 2 hours in the chamber of earth flame was disbelief as well, but as he recalled the matter regarding Wu Yang's heritage, he couldn't help but consider the possibility. Even though he had never seen the quintuple incandescence golden body before, it was famed to be the best physical body cultivation technique in Hongyuan Empire, paving the way for Wu Yangzi to become the best blacksmith here. I didn't know. I thought that he was intentionally causing trouble, so I demanded him to compensate for the damages. Hong Yuan said anxiously. If he had known that Zhong Xian had really endured the heat in the chamber of earth flame with his own strength, he wouldn't have caused such a fuss. Ultimately, the chamber of earth flame was a record challenge. If Zhong Shi had truly endured the heat in the chamber of earth flame with his own capability, it could only be said that the chamber of earth flame was not sufficiently well built to match up to his capability. To demand the challenger to pay for the reparation under such circumstances was a massive humiliation for the blacksmith school. And if Yuan Hong hadn't asked for compensation, the mess that came afterward wouldn't have occurred either. We can't blame him for this issue. There is indeed a huge flaw with the design of the chamber of earth flame, resulting in its inability to hold up in the face of a true expert. Zhao Bingshu sighed. You're right. Yuan Hong nodded. But now, the damage is no longer limited to just the chamber of earth flame. The entire passageway of records and half of the guild has been destroyed. What should we do about that? If it had just been the chamber of earth flame, they could easily forego it. After all, 10 high-tier spirit stones wasn't a huge sum for the blacksmith school. However, the damage had gone way farther than that. Regarding that, let's just call off the debt. After a long contemplation, Zhao Bingshu waved his hand and sighed. Call it off? How can we? Yuan Hong exclaimed in shock. If they were to simply call it off, the blacksmith school would be incurring a debt of several thousand high-tier spirit stones. As rich as they were, that was still an immense burden on them. Are you thinking about the loss? His contribution of the zither forging technique to our blacksmith school goes way farther than a few thousand high-tier spirit stones. Zhao Bingshu shook his head. Wu Yang's heritage would boost the skills of the members of the blacksmith school by leaps and bounds. Zhong Xian's contribution would benefit generations of students to come, and that was worth far more than a few thousand high-tier spirit stones. If needed, the blacksmith school was willing to fork out even several 10,000 high-tier spirit stones for Wu Yang's heritage if it had to. The zither forging technique was not only elegant, it made smithing into an art form. This encouraged immersion in their work, allowing them to raise their understanding of smithing subconsciously as they worked. With this secret manual in hand, the blacksmith school could very well overtake the apothecary school within a decade, becoming the number school in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. Even Zhao Bingshu, the head of the blacksmith school, was incapable of such a feat, so how could such contribution be valued only at a few thousand high-tier spirit stones? They were on two totally different levels. Given the immense contributions that Zhong Xian had made to the school, if they were to continue demanding compensation from the other party over such a minor matter, wouldn't they make the other students disillusioned about the school? Indeed. Not only should we cancel the compensation, we should reward him even. It's only right for us to reward such talents to retain them in our blacksmith school. The other vice school heads expressed their support on the matter as well. There were many schools in the master teacher, so the competition over talents was extremely rife. No matter what, they had to retain a talent like Zhongshe in the blacksmith school and have it become his main supporting occupation. This way, if he were to make his name in the world, the school's reputation would also rise along with his. On the other hand, Yuan Hong's mouth twitched. That fellow had nearly destroyed the entire branch, and not only were they not going to penalize him, they were going to reward him even. If that was the case, wouldn't he lose his authority among the students? Nevertheless, he had no choice but to acknowledge school head Zhao's words. Contributing the zither forging technique to the blacksmith school was indeed a huge merit. Even if Zhong Xian were to wreak havoc upon the entire blacksmith school, as long as no students were hurt in the process, his merit could easily wipe off his wrongdoings. In the end, the core of the Master Teacher Academy lay in its people. As long as they had sufficient talents, the academy could always be rebuilt. The Master Teacher Pavilion in the higher-ranked empires had been assaulted by the otherworldly demonic tribe many times, and its facilities and libraries had been destroyed again and again. However, the heritage of Master Teachers still lived on, guiding humanity to greater heights. All right, the matter is decided then. Right, didn't you say that he intends to take the 5-star blacksmith examination? Bring him to the ocean of weapons then. As long as he clears the examination, I'll take him in as my student. Zhao Bingshu chuckled. It would be ideal if he could accept such a genius as his student. Yes. Yuan Hong nodded. As for the rest of you, you have done well in the mission as well. I'll obtain a few pills from the apothecary school for you and conduct a meridian and bone cleansing for you personally. Zhao Bingshu turned to Luo Chichi and the others and said, Meridian and bone cleansing? Thank you, school head Zhao. Upon hearing those words, the faces of Luo Chichi and the others flushed in agitation. Considering that it was a meridian and bone cleansing by one of the 10 great master teachers, were it to succeed, they would be able to progress from straight to half-saint without facing any bottlenecks in their cultivation. Meridian and bone cleansing was an extremely exhausting process. Even a Saint Realm expert wouldn't do so easily. In that aspect, this was the best reward they could receive. It was far better than earning academic credit. Yuan Hong, you should bring Zhongshe to the examination hall now. Make sure to treat him amiably. Don't give him the idea that our blacksmith school mistreats meritorious student. Zhao Bingshu instructed sternly. Yes. With a lowered head, Yuan Hong walked out from the office, and a bitter smile emerged on his lips. When he first arrived at the office, he was still thinking about having the school head to issue a severe punishment to Zhong Xian. Who could have thought that there would be such a huge turnaround? How did things turn to this? Just the thought of it left him extremely stifled within. Chapter 741. I am not a blacksmith yet, what's going on? Did you see that? This fellow cheated in the Chamber of Earth Flame Challenge and destroyed the entire area. On top of that, he even intentionally directed the Earth Flame to tear down the passageway of record. Is that fellow insane, or is he simply sick of living? I have no clue either, but since it isn't a matter involving us, let's just watch quietly. A portion of the guild collapsing was no trifling matter. Before long, a huge crowd had already gathered around the area, each busy asking one another to satisfy their curiosity. When they learned that it was a freshman who had caused such a huge uproar, pity immediately surfaced in their eyes. Even if he was tired of living, this wasn't how he should seek the end. They were in the Master Teacher Academy, not some countryside school. To cause such a mess and be caught personally by Vice School head Yuan Hong at that. It would be perfectly accurate to say that he was a goner. Even if he were to spend his life working here, he would never be able to pay off the debt. Stand obediently. Luo Yang glared at the young man coldly. Knowing that his teacher was truly infuriated by this matter, he dispatched 8 experts to guard this fellow. If not for fear that it might reflect badly on them, he would have already had him pummeled. For a freshman to go about wreaking havoc instead of staying put in the freshman area, he deserved it even if he was expelled from the academy. I don't mean to do anything, I just want to check on the other mechanisms in the passageway of records and see if they can be fixed. Seeing how the other students were so guarded against him as if he was a burglar out to steal their valuables, Zhongxian sighed deeply. He was also very apologetic that such a situation had occurred. All he'd wanted to do was take the 5-star blacksmith examination quietly. Never had he thought that he would end up in such a state. In the end, he allowed greed to get the better of him. Earth flame hearts were extremely valuable commodities, and who knows how long it would be before he could encounter another one. Furthermore, he also hadn't thought that the renowned Earth flame heart's reputation would precede its capability. He had already tried to limit himself, thinking that he would stop once his soul reached 10 meters, but it coincidentally broke down right when he reached that mark. And as for the repairs, how could he have known that the esteemed blacksmith school would end up skimming on a formation plate used to draw earth flame? But it was all too late now. The only thing he could do now was try to salvage the situation as best he could. Otherwise, if he were to really incur a debt of 3,000 high-tier spirit stones, he would end up wasting many years here. You are thinking of repairing the other mechanisms? Let me tell you, if you dare to lay even a finger on them, don't blame me for getting nasty. Seeing that the other party lacked the slightest remorse for his actions, attempting to put his demonic claws on the other mechanisms as well, Luo Yang's rage immediately flurried. What the hell is this? If it wasn't for your fixing, would the Blacksmith Guild have been reduced to ruins? If you don't have the ability to fix it, don't even try it in the first place. I can really fix them. What happened a moment ago was just an accident. Zhongxian hurriedly explained. I can prove it to you. Bring me a higher quality formation plate, and I'll fix the chamber of earth flame before your eyes. You're seeking death. Seeing how that fellow was still prattling on despite all he had done, Luo Yang's rage finally reached its breaking point. A powerful aura gushed forth as he thrusted his palm toward the conceited fellow before him. Hula. As a 5-star pinnacle blacksmith, his cultivation had already reached transcendent mortal 8-dan ethereal treading realm. His palm thrust was bursting with might, threatening to tear apart the fabric of space. Stop! Just as the palm was about to reach Zhongxian, a loud bellow suddenly sounded from afar. A silhouette rushed forward, and with a light flick of his hand, he dispelled the zhunqi that Luo Yang had gathered behind his strike. Deng 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 deng, Luo Yang's face reddened, and he was pushed several steps back. A dull pain resonated throughout his body as his zhunqi fell into disarray with his offense abruptly dispelled. Upon catching a clear sight of the figure who had stopped his offense, Luo Yang froze. Teacher. It was no other than his teacher, who was dying to strangle Zhongxian a moment ago. Wasn't his teacher extremely furious with this fellow? Why would he stop him from teaching this fellow a lesson? Bewildered, he was just about to ask his teacher about the matter when the latter suddenly turned around to look at the young man behind him with a bright smile on his face. Are you all right? Are you injured? How dare that unfilial student of mine lay his hands on you? Shall I teach him a lesson in your stead? Ah! Hearing those words, Luo Yang's body staggered from shock. What was this madness unfolding before him? Was the person he was seeing really his teacher, the vice head of the blacksmith school? Wasn't he dying to strangle that fellow to death a moment ago? Why did his attitude suddenly make a 180-degree change? Didn't you say that vice school head Yuan is extremely angry? Given that the branch has suffered such severe damage, who wouldn't be angry in his position? But that response of his. It doesn't seem like he's angry at all. That is a gross understatement. Look carefully, don't you feel that he's fawning over that freshman? Fawning? You are exaggerating. Vice School Head Yuan is a 6-star pinnacle master teacher and blacksmith. With such esteemed standing, is there anyone in the school he needs to fawn over? All of the students who had gathered for the commotion were also dumbfounded. With the branch suffering such catastrophic damage, they'd thought that the freshman behind it would be heavily punished to send out a stern warning to the others. But if that was the case, what was with that declaration to teach Luo Yang a lesson? That bright smile and that attitude. No matter how one looked at it, surely the vice school head was trying to fawn over that fellow. Teach him a lesson? There's no need for that, I'm fine. They weren't the only ones who were baffled by the situation. Even Zhong Xian, the perpetrator of this entire incident, was confused by the abrupt twist in the plot. Didn't this elder march off furiously to the school head's office to bring forth a heavy penalty upon him? Why would he suddenly treat him so kindly? It's good that you're fine. Yuan Hong heaved a sigh of relief. Following which, he turned his gaze to Luo Yang and bellowed, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and apologize to Zhongshe." Ever since leaving the school head's office, Yuan Hong had rushed all the way back here, fearing that the students might have laid their hands on Zhongxian. And it was fortunate that he did. If that palm were to land on Zhongxian, it would strike out whatever goodwill he had for the blacksmith school along with it. If that were to happen, how were they going to keep him in the blacksmith school? One must know that the school head had already expressed his interest in accepting him as his direct disciple. If he were to reject the blacksmith school due to Luo Yang's slap, how was he going to explain this matter to the school head? This unfilial student of his had nearly gotten him into deep trouble. Apologize? Luo Yang couldn't help but feel that the world had gone bonkers. Teacher, why should I apologize to him? He destroyed the passageway of records and half of the blacksmith guild. Enough. But before Luo Yang could finish his words, Yuan Hong interrupted furiously. Waving his hands in annoyance, he roared sharply, "Return back to your quarters and reflect on what you have done. Without my orders, you are not to leave your room. Just apologize when I tell you to. Do you need to spout so much nonsense? Are you only going to be content when you land me into deep trouble?" Teacher. Hearing that his teacher was going to ground him for no good reason, Luo Yang seethed with indignation, unable to accept what was happening before him. At the same time, the others in the area also glanced at one another, uncomprehending of what Yuan Hong was up to. "What are you all standing around for? The group over there, take Luo Yang back to his quarters," Yuan Hong instructed sternly. After issuing those orders, Yuan Hong turned his gaze back to Zhongxian and said politely, "Zhongshe, aren't you intending to take the 5-star blacksmith examination? Allow me to bring you to the Ocean of Weapons." Ocean of Weapons? But I don't have any academic credits. Zhongxian uttered in bewilderment. What is wrong with this fellow? Did he bump his head somewhere? It is one thing to teach Luo Yang a lesson, but to bring me to the Ocean of Weapons as well? I thought that the Ocean of Weapons is only open to those with ample academic credit. You don't have any academic credits? Don't worry, that's not a problem at all. The group over there, wait there for a moment. Luo Yang, take out your academic credit token and give Zhongshe too, ordered Yuan Hong as he turned to the departing group. Hearing those words, Luo Yang nearly burst into tears from sheer indignation. Why should I? That fellow caused a huge mess over here, but not only are you sparing him from punishment, you are even asking me to give him academic credits. Isn't this favoritism too much? Stop wasting time, hurry up. Yuan Hong frowned. All right. Nevertheless, Luo Yang dared not disobey the commands of his teachers, so he obediently passed his academic credit card over. Students were allowed to transfer academic credits amongst themselves as well. Given that Zhongxian hadn't received his identity token yet, it went without saying that he hadn't received an academic credit card as well. However, such a small issue couldn't possibly stumble a vice school head. With a flick of his wrist, Yuan Hong took out an empty card and transferred 2 points into it from Luo Yang's card. All right, Zhongshe. We have the academic credits now, So let's go. After doing what had to be done, Yuan Hong turned to Zhongxian with a smile and gestured for him to head forward. Zhongxian blinked in a daze, overwhelmed by the happenings before him. He pointed to the rubble in the area blankly and asked, "This? Don't I have to compensate for this?" "You don't have to worry about it. This isn't your fault, so you won't have to compensate for this. I'll have someone fix it up later," Yuan Hong replied. "This? All right then." Even though Zhongxian had no idea what was going on, he was still relieved to hear that he was excused from payment. 3,000 high-tier spirit stones was way beyond his means. It would be best if he could be spared from compensation. Is this really the austere vice school head Yuan that I know? What kind of play is this? It was just a moment ago that vice school head Yuan looked as if he was going to tear that fellow apart. Yet, in just a few short moments, he suddenly became like that. Taking that scene into sight, the master teachers gathered in the area were trembling in frenzy. This was a branch of the blacksmith guild. That fellow had caused the collapse of half of the entire building, and yet, not only was he not criticized for it, he was even granted so many privileges. This was way too abnormal. Such a feeling resonated particularly strongly with Li Xian amidst the crowd. Her body was trembling uncontrollably, and she nearly fainted from the sight. She had been the one to show that fellow around ever since he'd arrived at the blacksmith guild, and all this time, she had thought of him as a conceited and naive freshman. For such a person to actually win vice school head Yuan's favor, what was this world turning into? Despite racking his brain, Zhongxian was unable to find any logical reason as to why the attitude of the elder before him would change so abruptly. In the end, he could only attribute it to Elder Mo and Pavilion Master Mo's halo. Sighing deeply, he followed Yuan Hong to the other half of the blacksmith guild, which had, fortunately, remained intact despite the previous explosion. Before long, he was standing before a towering door. "Zhongshe, this is the entrance to the ocean of weapons. To take the 5-star blacksmith examination, you just have to place your academic credit card and 4-star emblem on the stone pedestal over there and step through the door, and you will be brought to the corresponding examination area." With a gentle smile, Yuan Hong gestured. Just like the passageway of records, the ocean of weapons was also a complex mechanism created using many unique materials. In order to activate it, one would require sufficient academic credits in their card, as well as an emblem a rank lower than the examination one was going to take. With these two objects, one would be able to activate the mechanism and take the corresponding examination. This was an extremely efficient system which spared the Blacksmith Guild from having to devote too much manpower into manning its examination facilities. "I need a 4-star emblem for the examination?" Zhongxian was taken aback. "Indeed. Since Zhongshe is here to take the 5-star examination, I believe you should already have the 4-star emblem in your possession. Don't worry, any emblem distributed by the Blacksmith Guild is usable here," Yuan Hong explained, thinking that Zhongxian was worried that the blacksmith emblem which he'd obtained elsewhere might not be usable here. "This?" Zhongxian scratched his head awkwardly. "Is an emblem really required? What do I have to do if I don't have one?" "Don't have one?" Yuan Hong froze. "What do you mean by that?" Zhongxian blushed in embarrassment. "That is, I have yet to take a blacksmith examination. The truth is that I am actually not a blacksmith yet. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.